Good evening. I hereby call the Palm Springs regular City Council meeting of February 9th, 2023 to order. Today we have Cameron Cavaretto. He's 7 years old and he's a second grader at Cahuilla Elementary. He enjoys math, Minecraft, Legos, and loves his older sisters. Cameron, can you walk up to the podium? Go ahead.
Stand up, please.
Yes, sir.
Ready, begin. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, Cameron. Thank you. And just a reminder to the public, any student that wants to come and lead us in the pledge is more than welcome to contact us. City Clerk, can you please conduct a roll call?
Councilmember DeHart.
Here.
Councilmember Hostage.
Here.
Councilmember Middleton.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Bernstein.
Here.
Mayor Gardner.
Here.
5 members present.
Thank you. At this time, I want to show a little slide from our Sister City celebration. Awesome. So yesterday, we signed an agreement to be sister cities with San Miguel de Allende. And it was a really lovely ceremony held here in Chambers, and then we had lunch, and the delegation from San Miguel de Allende, which was, I think, about 13 people, also got to tour Palm Springs and meet with a lot of members of our community, and we're really excited about what's to come. And Mayor Pro Tem, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, just to add that they visited one of our local schools, the Art Museum, the Indian Canyons, and they're very excited about working with our city. And this is an opportunity for everyone in the city to get involved, from students, teachers, business people. San Miguel de Allende is a beautiful city, the rich culture, and they're very interested in working with Palm Springs. And it was a beautiful ceremony. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So the next, our next item is acceptance of the agenda. The City Council will discuss the order of the agenda, may amend the order, add urgency items, note abstentions or no votes on consent calendar items, or request consent calendar items be removed for a separate discussion. Are there any items staff or a council member would like removed from the consent calendar for a separate discussion or vote? None? Staff? Go ahead.
Yes, we do have one item that we'd like to remove from the consent calendar, and that is item number 1G relative to adult-oriented businesses. I have a number of corrections to discuss with the council.
And that will be brought back at our next meeting?
If we could discuss the item, and then we'll take action on it then.
Oh, you want to discuss? Okay, great.
Yes.
Thank you
just
so
briefly.
Much. Do we have our city attorney on Zoom? Great.
Yes.
We can get a report of closed session, please.
Yes, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, members of the public, the City Council met in closed session to discuss the items that are listed on tonight's agenda. There is no reportable action.
Thank you. The next item is public testimony. This time has been set aside for members of the public to address the City Council on non-public hearing agenda items only. 2 minutes will be assigned to each speaker. You're asked to please begin your time by telling us the agenda item or items you are speaking about. Please note that testimony for public hearings will be taken at the time of the public hearing, and general public comments for subjects not on the agenda will be taken later in the evening. If you get it confused, we'll let you know. City Clerk, can you please begin?
Yes, ma'am. Our first speaker is Mike Guerrera. You have 2 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Mike Guerra. I'm speaking on item 3C, the orchid tree. Joan Four and I live on West Arenas, 2.5 blocks away from the orchid tree project, and we fully support Mr. Weintraub's proposal to the City Council. Last I checked, there were 16 emails and letters in support of the project submitted to this city. 2 of the letters are attached to your staff report. One of them is from the HTCUNO Incorporated, which is the neighborhood organization, and the other is from the St. Baristos Association, and those are both in support of the project. And then there's 14 others that I saw on the clerk's website that are also in support. The internet has been down in the tennis club neighborhood, I think for the past 2, maybe 3 hours. It's not supposed to come back until 6, so maybe there's a few more emails that will come in. Those of us who live in the neighborhood, own property in the neighborhood, are very protective of our neighborhood. The tennis club neighborhood, believe me, it's rare to get such a consistent support for a project proposal. If those of us who live in the neighborhood close to the orchid tree support the new proposal and are willing to be a bit more patient, it's our hope that the city council will agree with us and vote in favor of this proposal. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Danny Perlotti, followed by Irene Gilbert.
Close enough on the name.
What was that?
Perotti. Hi, I'm here on 3C also. My name is Danny Perotti. My wife is Lene Folks. She's spoken to a few of you before. I'm also very much in favor of, I live in the villas of Old Palm Springs. I've been a resident for Palm Springs for 22 years. I'm also very much in favor of the orchid tree, auberge. I've stayed in one. They're fabulous. It's going to be a great, great addition to Palm Springs. And the way it was run was incredible. It should be copied in the other projects. They worked with the neighbors, which is very important. I just want to stress that. It couldn't have been run better. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Irene Gilbert, followed by Tiffany Paremba.
Good evening. My name is Irene Gilbert. I live on Baristo, half a block from the Orchid Tree Project. And I don't have anything to add to the words of Mike Guerra. I just want to reinforce that, this project has been, or this property has been an eyesore in the city for many years. I believe based on the activity that's taken place there with respect to cleaning it up, that Mr. Weintraub is serious about doing something that is right for the neighborhood. And I think that this project will be a win-win for the neighborhood as well as the city. So I urge you to accept his proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Tiffany Paremba, followed by Kate Castle.
Hi, nice to meet all of you. I have always dreamed of owning a home here. I've been a long-term resident of the desert. I grew up here, moved away. Finally, a few years ago, I was able to afford, I bought an incredibly beautiful Wexler, restored it. I've done all this work, and unfortunately, that's turned into a bit of a disaster. I am disabled. I have Parkinson's, and I'm sorry, this is a little difficult for me to speak on, but I have Parkinson's, and through the COVID, it's not a fun time to have an autoimmune disease. I had a stroke, which left me almost, I needed to sell my home for financial reasons because of this. And, but I wasn't able to, thanks to my health situation. And then, so I finally was able to list it. I forced myself to list it in November, and a week later, the vacation rental ordinance passed. And so I've had this beautiful home that all these realtors were fighting to get to list and all this, and I literally in 4 months have had maybe 10 showings And the problem for this is the fact that I can't get or afford medical help at this point. It's impossible for me to get medical help. I have neighbors across the street who are also older, and they have a similar situation. They need to list their home for things like that, and they can't. And I know I'm going to go over, so I guess I'm just appealing to sort of your compassion and to maybe look at a different side to the story of what's happening with the vacation rentals, of being sort of trapped in a neighborhood where you cannot sell your home. Like, everyone loves my home. No one wants to buy it because it can't be vacation rental.
Thank you. Your time is expired.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Kate Castle, followed by Mark Davis.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor Garner, Honorable Pro Tem Mayor Jeffrey Burstein, Councilmember DeHart, Holstage, and Middleton. I think I got them all. At any rate, my name is Kate Castle, and I'm a full-time resident of Palm Springs and a homeowner. I'm speaking tonight on agenda item 3B as a representative of the Board of Directors for 1PS, as well as being the co-chair of Governmental Affairs and Relations Committee for 1PS. The Board of Directors for 1PS met Monday, February 6, to review the upcoming agenda item 3B, governing vacation rentals in Palm Springs. As there are 3 options being presented by the city staff, our board discussed the pros and the cons of each and determined by unanimous vote to make our strong position of support for option number 2, where for the purpose for this resolution identifies just one group. The board took this position for many reasons, including avoiding creating 14 neighborhoods without regard to the ordinance authorizing the creation of the current 52 recognized neighborhoods in Palm Springs. To elaborate further, we felt option number 1, creating 14 new neighborhoods by the city rather than organically by the residents themselves, would create enforcement issues that could be better addressed in option number 2. We've not had any residents seek to join nearby existing neighborhoods as suggested in option number 3. To expand a neighborhood by a city decree rather than from residents themselves to remove the sense of community that was developed in the establishment of a neighborhood through a petition with signatures of support from the residents themselves. Therefore, we respectfully ask option number 2 be adopted for the purpose of this resolution governing vacation rentals. And thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. The next speaker is Mark Davis, followed by Michael Joseph Pitkin.
Honorary Mayor and City Council members, thank you for letting me speak this evening. My name is Mark Davis. I'm a preservationist, but more importantly, I'm a business owner. I have been in Palm Springs for 20 years. I own a couple of businesses here. We're on the south end, so we do have issues with the homeless around our business. And I'm speaking tonight on agenda C, or 3C, I should say, the Orchid Tree Hotel project. I'm familiar with the developer. He's done amazing things in other communities. I know this for a fact. He's currently restoring a Frank Lloyd Wright property in Los Angeles that he purchased from USC. I know that he is the right person to do this project in Palm Springs. This has been an eyesore, like someone mentioned earlier. It's been vacant for a long time. I know that he's going to be restoring the church there, which to me is very important, and it should be to the rest of the community. And I'm hoping that you will approve this measure and let this project go on through. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Michael Joseph Pitkin, followed by Bryant Hurd.
Michael Joseph Pitkin, all allocations 1G and H, 2B, 3A and B. Military law enforcement tactics of snitches, informants, entrapment, private investigators, paid actors. No one would survive such civil rights violations. Chief Mills' Operation Relentless Sun claims many unhoused are convicts, insane, and drug addicts in need of secure detention. After disaster, an entire community comes together. FEMA and military set up tents for victims and those experiencing internally displacement. They have end goals, and with follow-up, goals achieved. Now, law enforcement referrals to social service agencies who then give referrals to more referrals that go nowhere, merry-go-round, with no follow-through or any end goal. Current service providers' grants do not cover much of what unhoused need for accomplishing basic survival goals. I ask U.S., California, Riverside County, Indian Nations, and Palm Springs to create a pilot emergency grant, a refuge community run by military that can be emulated all across America in every city. Pilot grant designed after Maslow's theory of needs, a pyramid showing that basic physical and safety needs, food, water, warmth, rest, must be met before higher level ones, psychological, love, esteem, self-fulfillment, can be satisfied. Case managers create an individualized, client-focused service plan via follow-up achievable goals. Follow up until goals are attained. Shelters need an overnight percentage of bed availability, no one being turned away just because they did not know policy. HIPAA-compliant phone bank, HIPAA-compliant Zoom rooms, appointments for case management, no first come, first serve. Disabled are unable to comply with unreasonable policy and compete with the Department of Corrections prison gang mobbing mentality. These individuals block first come, first serve. Stop deflecting responsibility onto other cities. Case management need to pass an accountability score of quality assurance tied to their grant. Case managers need to be in Palm Springs and not under law enforcement. If disabled, unhoused, have no transportation, traveling to Riverside or Indio is impossible. Bus stop double dipping needs to stop.
Thank you. Your time is up. Thank you. Next speaker is Brian Hurd, followed by Barbara Marshall.
Here to speak about item 3C on the agenda, the Orchid Tree property. My name is Brian Hurd. I'm president of the St. Bristow Condominium Owners Association. It's a 38-unit condominium development directly across the street from the Orchid Tree property. Like everyone else in the room, we are frustrated by the amount of time it's taken to get this project off the ground. Having said that, we support everything that the City Council has done on this project to date, and we especially appreciate Councilmember Middleton's leadership as to this and other issues affecting our neighborhood. Now, the developer has proposed certain changes to the project that's going to come before the council. We largely support those changes. We've reviewed the changes to the building design, and we have no issue with those. The developer has proposed financial penalties in the event of a future failure to meet construction deadlines. We definitely support that, although we would go one step further and ask that that payment of any such penalties be guaranteed with a performance bond or possibly a cash deposit. He's also asked for additional concessions for tax abatement and filing fees. That's not an issue for our neighborhood, except to say that at this point we don't want to see the project killed. It's too late for that. We'd like to see the thing go forward. Now, we understand that an apartment building is being proposed for that location in the event that the hotel project fails to materialize. I've seen renderings of this, and frankly, I don't know if they're real or just for negotiating purposes. But what I saw, we would oppose primarily because of the size of the thing, among other reasons.
Thank you. Your time
Thank
is
you.
up. Next speaker is Barbara Marshall, followed by Jenny Fote. No, go ahead now.
Good evening. I'm Barbara Marshall with the Palm Springs Preservation Foundation. I'm here for item 2A, the Security First National Bank class.
So that one is a public hearing item.
Right. I just asked about that, and I was told to speak.
Oh, your public hearing. I'm sorry. That's my fault.
Security
This-
first.
I'm sorry. That's my mistake. Jenny Fote, followed by Gary Johns.
Good evening. I'm speaking on item 3A. I've spent a great deal of time working on homeless issues, from co-founding the CVAG Committee on Homelessness in 2007 and the city's task force. Today, where I'm a member of the Citizens Committee that is consulting on the Resource Center. One of the most important parts of the center, and I compliment the city on this forward thinking, is that it will allow unhoused individuals to bring their pets with them, as many of these pets are their only family. Roy's did not allow pets, so consequently many unhoused individuals that would have sought help did not, because they would not leave their family member behind. Both the federal and state government and Department of Housing and Community Development recognize the importance of this and fund services related to pets of the unhoused. The city owns one of the most successful, well-run, and award-winning no-kill shelters. The operators of the shelter have long anticipated providing their excellent services to the Resource Center. Their involvement is not just to make sure the pets of the homeless have a place to stay, but it is critical in so many other ways. Animals can carry communicable diseases that can be passed on to other dogs. Rabies and other life-threatening diseases are appearing much more frequently in older dogs and puppies with low immune systems. Unaltered dogs can create serious, dangerous situations and or create situations that result in puppies. Evaluations of pets on intake is almost as important to the safety, well-being, and success of the Resource Center as client intake. What arrangements have been made for doggy daycare as residents attend employment or health appointments off campus? There is nothing on this plan that allocates room for any of this. There's also an issue with approach to children's play area being right next to the dog run, although I have brought this up on many occasions and it's not changed. We're asking that the design team meet with experts on animal welfare from the Friends of the Palm Springs Animal Shelter and build in some spaces for their services. There'll be funding available, but more importantly, this pre-planning will add to the success and safety of this humanitarian program, allowing the unhoused to keep their family members with them at the Resource Center. And I'll be here for your discussion if you have any questions.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Richard Weinberg.
Sorry, my writing, my dad's a doctor.
Say your last name again.
Weintraub.
Weintraub.
Yeah.
Thank you, Richard. 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. So after a long time, we're going to apparently have a conversation tonight about how to move forward with the Auberge Hotel. And in advance, I want to thank the council people and the mayor for their consideration this evening. The offer that I made of a significant financial penalty for non-performance is part of the whole package. And that's really important not to, in my opinion, to be line itemed out. I also wanted to speak to the idea of the TOT, that I'm not asking the city for any additional TOT. And the staff report, and that's probably lying on my fault because the staff's done a fantastic job, is implying that we're asking for an additional amount of TOT. It's really a timing issue to help support the hotel and the lender for construction, for comfort, and for as the property gets built and gets stabilized. And then it gets paid back to the city as a super priority ahead of ourselves from years 20 to 30 in a straight line. Second thing is the amount of money that we've asked for the deferral on the fees, applications, et cetera, which we did in another city successfully before. We are willing to, that's a very important because it's a significant number, but we're willing to put that as a super priority as well to the city for year 3 and ensure through the city attorney and my attorney that there can be no distributions to ownership before the city gets those monies. So the city will be in a priority ahead of myself. I really want to thank the neighborhood here tonight. Oh, shoot, I know I have to end,
Your
but,
time, yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very, very much for your time and consideration. Thanks.
Thank you. We have one speaker online, Joshua Gothiam. Joshua, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. I'm just here as part of the applicant team, the Land Use and Real Estate Council for Weintraub Company. I'm available if there are questions later during the discussion of the item. Thank you.
Thank you. We have no further speaker, Madam Mayor.
So the next item is the consent calendar. I'll entertain a motion to accept the consent calendar without item 1G, which was removed for separate discussion. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second? All right, motion from Councilmember Middleton and a second from Councilmember DeHart. Are we voting through roll call still?
Yes.
Okay.
Councilmember Middleton.
Aye.
Councilmember DeHart.
Yep.
Councilmember Hostage.
Yes.
Councilmember Bernstein. Mayor Pro Tem Bernstein.
Yes.
Mayor Gardner.
Yes.
5 yeses, 0 nos. Motion passes.
Great, thank you. At this time, we will hear item 1G. Go ahead, Flynn.
Madam Mayor and members of council, in reviewing the ordinance with council members prior to this evening's meetings, it was pointed out that there are a number of corrections that need to be made. And in reviewing the tape, I would agree with those corrections. What I'm proposing, and I'll read these out just one by one, is first on page 7 of the staff report under section 5.77.010 is to reinstate the language that has been stricken relative to the definition of an adult sex venue, stating that it's not primarily dedicated to providing overnight lodging. We would reinstate that language, and again, that was my error in crossing that out. Secondly, in section 5.77.010, relative to the definition of specified anatomical parts, what we're proposing is to eliminate subsection 2 based on your discussion at the previous meeting. And then finally, the last proposed correction or change is in section 5.77.025. This is under subsection 20, relative to adult entertainment venues to eliminate the 6-foot distance requirement. And so those are the 3 corrections or changes that I would propose to you this evening. Based on the scope of these changes, the city attorney is recommending that we do this as first reading this evening and then coming back at second reading on February the 21st. In your staff report for February the 21st, I'll clearly outline those proposed corrections. And with that, Mr. City Attorney, if you could just walk us through the process, if council is comfortable with those corrections as I've read them into the record.
Correct. Mr. Fag is correct. If the council is agreeable to these changes, my recommendation would be that the council go ahead and adopt the ordinance with first reading and then ask the city clerk to conduct that first reading of the title of the ordinance following the vote.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions or comments from council? Councilmember DeHart.
Yeah, I appreciate staff's acknowledging and making those corrections in the report, and I fully support what's before us tonight.
Is that a motion?
I move that we accept this staff recommendation.
Great. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Councilmember Holstage. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember DeHart.
Yes.
Councilmember Hostage.
Yes.
Councilmember Middleton.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Bernstein.
Yes.
Mayor Gardner.
Yes.
5 yeses, 0 nos. Motion passes.
And can we please have the item read into the the title read into the record?
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Palm Springs, California, amending Chapter 577 of the Palm Springs Municipal Code relating to adult-oriented business regulations.
Thank you very much. The next item is 2A. It's a public hearing for an application by the City of Palm Springs for historic designation of the Security First National Bank located at 500 South Indian Canyon Drive. May we have a staff report, please?
Yes. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and members of council. This item before you tonight is an application for a Class 1 historic designation of the Security First National Bank located at 500 South Indian Canyon Drive. Let's see. And the presentation is not moving. There we go. The property is located at the corner of South Indian Canyon and Ramon Road within the Central Business District designation of the general plan and has split zoning being both C1 and R2, with the C1 portion being sort of where the building itself is adjacent to Indian Canyon and the R2 portion being the parking lot to the east. The application for designation was added to the work plan for the Historic Site Preservation Board in 2021 at the request of the Palm Springs Preservation Foundation and was initiated as a city-led project considered by the HSPB in early January of this year. Currently a Union Bank branch, this property was formerly known as the Security First National Bank and was completed in 1959. This one-story commercial building was completed in the post-World War II context and marks the change and vitality that was brought to the southern part of downtown as a small financial district began to emerge. The photo on the right shows the building after completion. These photos show the existing condition of the site today. As you can see, the site and the structure in this prominent location still retains much of its original design integrity, and there haven't been substantial changes to the building since its construction. The process outlined in the municipal code lists 7 criterion that qualify a structure as a Class 1 historic resource and requires that one or more of these be met to warrant designation. This is among the stronger examples of an application for historic designation that we've seen in recent years, in that it meets 3 of the criteria listed here, including number 2, as the artist Lawrence Tenney Stevens is recognized internationally for his art. Number 3, as it is representative of the evolution from traditional neoclassical to modernist architecture and the shift of the banking industry towards convenience and vehicular access. And number 5, again representing the work of an internationally recognized artist who created the terracotta bas-relief panels that depict an important part of local history and are of high historic value. Additionally, the resource must be evaluated for its integrity. There are 7 topics for evaluating integrity which are listed here, and while there have been some minor changes to the property over the years, the site today retains historic integrity in all 7 of these areas. And finally, staff undertake an analysis of character defining features that support the historic significance of the subject property, and that is summarized here. This includes characteristics of the building as well as the site and the landscaping. Regarding the timeline for the project, you can see here that the designation process was formally initiated by the Historic Site Preservation Board in June of 2021, as I mentioned, at the request of the Palm Springs Preservation Foundation. And there have been many conversations with both the current property owner and HSPB as this project has evolved over time. The HSPB held a hearing on January 2nd of this year, at which time they adopted a resolution recommending that the City Council designate the site as a Class 1 historic resource based on the findings that I mentioned earlier. To conclude, the Security First National Bank at 500 South Indian Canyon Drive qualifies as a Class 1 historic landmark pursuant to the Palm Springs Historic Preservation Ordinance by meeting 3 of the designation criteria and demonstrating a high level of historic integrity. The owners of the property, who I believe are on the phone to speak today, do not support the proposed request for historic designation. But based on the analysis of the property, staff and the HSPB find the property does merit the designation, and we are recommending that the City Council designate the site in accordance with the resolution that is in your package. That concludes my presentation. We are here for any questions. I'd also like to introduce our relatively new Historic Preservation Officer, Sarah Yoon, who will also be here to speak to the project and any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. Do we have any questions for staff? Councilmember Middleton.
Chris, as you've noted, the owner is opposed. Can you give us some description as to why they are opposed? But I'm sure we'll have an opportunity to hear directly from them. So my second and more important question for you is, what is our precedence in the past where there has been owner opposition, and under what circumstances, in your opinion, should we make a decision that is contrary to the wishes of the individuals who own a property?
Yeah, thank you for the question, and they are here, and they will certainly speak to their concerns in more detail than I can. But as I understand them, I think that they are concerned about the restrictions that the designation may put on their property in terms of making changes to the property, or, you know, if they were to pursue a new tenant, how that may attract or detract a potential future tenant from taking the space. Our staff, Sarah and Ken Lyons here, did hold several conversations with them to walk them through the process and to sort of try to calm some of those fears. We don't see this as necessarily, you know, being something that prohibits you from making changes to the building or you know, finding ways to utilize it in the way that you want, but rather just making sure that you work through the process with us to make sure that the changes aren't chipping away at the integrity or the historical significance of the building. So it really is just an added level of oversight to make sure that we're protecting that important resource. In terms of precedent, I understand we have done this in the past. I have 3 examples here. Well, the first is the Town and Country site, so Town and Country Center. So we did designate that building over the objections of the property owner in that case. We've also designated the Cody Gas Station, Tockwitz Plaza, and La Serena Villas. So we do have some precedent here where we have done this over the objections of the property owner. I would say the way that the ordinance is written and the way that we approach this is we are looking at the resource and the site and the building itself and determining whether it warrants designation under our ordinance and under our policy, and in this case, we believe that it is. Again, we're happy to work with the property owner to continue to work through their concerns and help them use the property in the way that they want to and need to remain flexible, which is, I understand, their primary concern. But we're really looking at, does it meet the criteria that we've established? And in this case, we believe that it does.
I'll get to comments a little bit later, but thank you for the outreach that you've done on this issue.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I have a couple questions. Thank you for this. First of all, when the rugged landscape, which is part of the defining characteristic, do we have precedent for doing that before?
I'm not sure about precedent for that. I mean, I think that was more of a description. So originally it had been defined as lush landscape, and I think that there was direction from the Historic Site Preservation Board that felt that wasn't an accurate capture of the original landscaping and the landscaping that's there today, which is really more native. It's more desert and drought resistant. It's got boulders and rocks. So I think that it was really a debate over whether it should be described as lush or rugged, and I think they sort of landed on the term rugged. But the idea being that, you know, the original landscaping was really more sort of in line with desert landscaping, and that really is what's there today.
We have made landscaping part of historic designation in the past.
Oh, yes,
Okay.
yes, yeah.
And if they just didn't want to have plants but wanted to keep the boulders that are and rocks that are nice, is that an option?
I will call my staff up. Do you want to come up here? So with part of the designation, can they alter the landscaping?
Good evening. Ken Lyon with the Planning Department. If there's an applicant who owns a historic building of this sort and there's changes that they want to make, whether to the building or to the landscape, if the landscaping is designated as a contributing feature, the HSPB would evaluate the possible changes. In this particular case, when the architect designed the building, the landscaping was an integral part of the way that he put the design together. And so we would work with the applicant. Obviously, we're in a drought condition, so we would work with the applicant to continue with some type of drought-resistant landscape in that particular area.
Okay. And the carport, it says that was redone in the 1980s. Is that all new or just elements of the unused carport?
There was an addition that was put onto the drive-through teller window. If you look at the building from the Indian Canyon side, you can actually see a joint in that cover.
And then a couple more. So when you talk about the roof, is there any restriction, like they want to put solar on it or anything like that?
No, absolutely not. Our preservation ordinance does have accommodation for solar and photovoltaic systems.
Okay. And it does, from what I understand, seem very likely the tenant may leave. So is there any problem with changing the signage or lighting on the outside of the building that a new tenant?
Absolutely not. As with any commercial building on a major thoroughfare, it would go through architectural review. In this case, the body that would be reviewing would be the HSPB.
Okay. I have some comments, but those are all my questions. Thank you.
Councilmember Middleton, Councilmember Holstage. Okay, fantastic. Go ahead, Councilmember DeHart.
Hey, Chris, a couple things on timing. Do you, the Preservation Foundation and the Site Preservation Board created reports, and the nomination project came out in July of 2020. When was that that report requested?
So the 2020 report, as I understand it, was the one that was undertaken by the Palm Springs Preservation Foundation in support of making the request to the Historic Preservation Board to initiate, as part of their work plan, the designation of the property. We then commissioned, once the HSPB determined that they did want to pursue the designation of it, we then commissioned a second report to make sure that it was sort of a neutral city-sponsored report to confirm or evaluate the findings that were in that third-party report, which we completed, I believe, at some point in 2022, which was then the basis of moving forward with the designation at the HSPB.
So when did the city start working on that Northwind report of June 22?
June 22, I believe. Well, so it was added to the HSPB's work program in 2021. I'm not sure exactly when we commissioned the report. I'm going to look. Shortly thereafter. It was some point in the second half of 2021 we began working on that report.
Okay. And was the owner included in both of these reports as they were developed?
So I can't speak to the outreach that the Palm Springs Preservation Foundation did in the work before the HSBB took it on in 2021, but certainly, and I can go back to this slide, we, as soon as it was requested to be put on to the HSBB's work program in 2021, there were, staff did have a conversation with the property owners to say that this was coming before HSPB, to explain that the request had been made and that it was going to be on the HSPB's agenda to pursue designation. That was prior to June of 2021.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Holstage.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you so much for the staff report and the report now. I just have a few questions. So along that line, was there a precipitating factor that caused this to be submitted, or that HSPB then took it up because of the application? Was it the sale of the property, or was there some other factor that led it to be submitted? I know it was submitted by the Preservation Foundation, but then HSPB considered it.
I don't know that there was any specific factor. I do know that, there is a lot of interest in identifying and evaluating these properties across the city by PSPF, and I believe this was one of them. I don't know if it was precipitated by the sale. I do know somebody from the foundation is going to be speaking in public hearing, so they may be able to speak to that. But, when their work was presented to the HSPB, they did determine that it rose to the level where they wanted to add it to their work program and pursue it as a city-initiated project.
Thank you. And I have a question about Criterion 2. So Criterion 2 is the resources associated with the lives of persons who made a meaningful contribution to national, state, or local history, just for the people who are listening and not following along with us visually. So the staff report states that it meets Criterion 2 because it's the report says it's associated with the artist of the panels, Lawrence Tenney Stevens. And then it also uses that same fact to meet Criterion 5. Usually when I've sat up here for 5 years and we've considered Criterion 2, it's if it's someone's home or it's more associated with their life in a different way than just the artist or the builder. Usually we use different criterions for that. So could you just describe, is that sufficient to meet both Criterion 2 or Criterion 5, or does it more appropriately fall within Criterion 5?
Sure. I may call Ken Lyons up
That
one more
might be
time and help us work through that process.
Thank you, Ken.
Good evening. The distinction between the two criterion is that the one about persons of local or national or state significance is really recognizing that there was something related to that person's period of productive years that was significant. And in this case, the bringing in of a internationally known artist to do those bas-relief panels became an incident or a factor that allowed this person to meet that criteria of persons of significance. The criteria number 5 regarding artistic high artistic value, or a person who is an architect or other who has influenced his peers, is looking at the criteria under different circumstances. This is more around the creative ability of that particular person and the ability of his work to actually influence others in his profession.
Thank you. So you think it's enough to meet criterion 2?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then I just have one other question. There was opposition in public comment, so we received a letter. I know there were a few received by the city, but this one stating we received it on February 2nd, describing opposition because of problems and blight in that area and the problem with the tenant and the potential the tenant leaves, and then concerns about basically redevelopment and blight. So could you just talk a little bit about the public response and what staff has seen as you move this process forward through HSPB and then here to City Council?
Sure. I think I would reiterate that our position is not that this designation is meant to be an impediment to the use or development of the site. And so I think, again, we would work, whether with the current property owner or tenant or a future tenant, to work through the process as effectively as possible to make sure they can get into the space and the space is occupied. The designation is certainly not intended to preclude the site from being used. If I think we in fact want to preserve the site to make sure that it continues to be used in the way that it was intended to and originally constructed, and that it contributes to our local history and historic resources. So certainly appreciate that there are ongoing issues regarding that across the city. I don't see this as necessarily encouraging or exacerbating those issues. But rather we're hoping that it allows the site to be used for years to come.
Thank you. I have the excerpt of the minutes from HSPB, but I don't believe I have attached the comments that HSPB received in that hearing. Did HSPB receive any opposition letters from the public at that time?
I think they received the same types of comments that are in your package tonight from the same kinds of folks. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. That might be helpful to know in what amount or
Sure.
what
I only recall sort of 2 letters of opposition that I'm aware of that were similar comments to the one that is in your package tonight.
Okay. Thank
Yeah.
you. I have no further questions, Madam
Thank
Mayor.
you.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Okay. Oh, only comments, great. At this time, I'd like to open the public hearing. The public is invited to speak on this public hearing for up to 2 minutes. City Clerk, do we have any registered speakers?
Yes, we'll call Ms. Barbara Marshall now. And I apologize, Ms. Marshall. Sorry about that.
Good evening. I'm Barbara Marshall with the Palm Springs Preservation Foundation. Why should the Security First National Bank building be designated a Class 1 historic resource? Here are 10 good reasons. 1, the building was at the top of the HSPB's work plan. 2, the building was evaluated by an architect who meets the Department of Interior's education and experience requirements under Title 36 CFR Part 61. 3, the building was likewise found to qualify for designation by Northwind Resource Consulting, an independent firm hired by the city. 4, the HSPB recommends the building for designation. 5, city staff recommends the building for designation. 6, it's the city's only building by renowned Asian American modernist architect Joseph Wong. 7, although only 1 criteria is required, the building meets 3 of the city's criteria for historic designation. 8, the building houses a publicly accessible sculpture that chronicles the history of Palm Springs by renowned artist Lawrence Tenney Stevens. 9, city records identify this building as a potential historic resource going back as far as August of 2000. And finally, reason 10, the building is still, 60 years later, wonderfully intact. It's curious that the current out-of-town owners do not support this nomination, when in addition to repurposing opportunities, the Mills Act benefits could be significant. Oddly, at the HSPB meeting, they offered to donate the sculpture. While they might think that a gesture of goodwill, because the sculpture is integral to the building, It's a giant red flag. Please convey to these owners how important this building is to the community by designating it. Your designation tonight would be a great start to this year's Modernism Week. Thank you, and thank you for your patience waiting for my public comment.
Thank you. Sorry. Gary Johns. You have 2 minutes, Mr. Johns.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and staff. My name is Gary Johns, and I'm here tonight to read a letter from Susan Sequoia Jensen into the record. Dear Mayor Garner and members of the Council, I'm writing in support of the Class 1 designation for the Security First National Bank building. I am the original author of the report. Research revealed the building as a very substantive part of the history of Palm Springs. Part of the research includes finding the family members of the original bank manager, Herbert Sampson. His daughter, Ruth Sampson Schroeder, and her husband, Don, recall a great deal about the project, and they currently still reside in Palm Springs. This story is part of their legacy, as well as the legacy of Palm Springs during the property's period of significance. This building and the incredible bas-relief panels created by Lawrence Tenney Stevens need to be considered as integrated as originally designed. I understand the changing demographics of the banking environment and the challenge to lease this building to new tenants if necessary. I am an architect and the owner of multiple properties, including those listed on the National Register of Historic Places. I speak as a landlord as well. Historic designation has added a value to our properties, and the tenants are proud to be a part of the local history. This building is a prime candidate for adaptive reuse, which can be enhanced by historic designation. Class 1 designation does not limit the possibilities. On the contrary, it enhances them. And this is signed sincerely, Susan Sequoia Jensen. And I'd like to enter that into the record.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Chris Jarris.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, you have 2 minutes.
Okay, great. Yeah, hi, my name is Chris Jarris, and I'm a full-time resident. I live actually across the street from the bank, so I know it well. And, you know, contrary to the prior comment, you know, I do oppose this, and I'm not an out-of-town person. I actually live across the street. And the reason I do is pretty simple. It's really, I'm worried about the blight of what happens if this thing goes empty. And this is not a NIMBY situation. I'm very much pro development, and I would love to have more stuff around here because as we activate these buildings, they kind of shoo away the homeless. And this building's already, as I've kind of written to you guys about, there's plenty of drug dealing and homeless problems around here. And if you go across the street to the old Saks building, you have it's basically a homeless camp, and if you go down the street to another building that's been designated by this, that the city pointed out, is the Robinsons building, the old alley, and that was relet. That's true, and now they're opening a restaurant. But how long did that take to get done? I have a feeling it was a long time, and what's happened to the homeless people that were living on the porch there? They've just moved them out into the street, and now that activation is kind of helping bring some vitality to that corner, and we need more of that on the street, not less. So my whole point is we need to do what we can to get these places leased and keep them leased and keep them occupied and be vigilant and not have more problems like we've had. Anyway, that's my comment, and I appreciate you listening to me, and I hope we can have a good discussion on this.
Next speaker is Jeff Piper.
Thank you for, I'm one of the owners, one of the 3 families that own this property. As you guys know, it's a Union Bank right now. Union Bank just got purchased by US Bank, which means there's a very good chance this tenant will be vacating. Our goal is to change nothing. We bought the building. We would like it to stay how it is, but we obviously have a great concern that in a very short period of time that it will become vacant. And what we want to have is a high quality tenant that belongs here, that is a good addition to the community. Our concern is, like for us, we wouldn't have bought the building if it was already designated as this, because it limits some of the possibilities. We're not trying to change it dramatically. We're not trying to do anything that stands out or be completely an eyesore for the community. But when the bank moves out, which most likely is going to happen, we're going to have to find a tenant. And when that happens, and during those periods, we're going to board the building up, and the problems the neighbors are going to have is going to be a bigger issue. It's an important investment for us, and we really want to use it for the best that we can for the ability. Once we got past what the building is, during the last meeting, it definitely felt like it was an extension of all the time that said, hey, it's going to be into the parking lot, and now it's the landscaping. So it seems like just an overreach as it kept getting further and further. So if we could narrow it down to either the tablets or the building itself, because we obviously already have an issue that we're trying to figure out how to handle, but it's going to be very limiting on how we're going to be able to deal with it if we're not allowed to make any changes in the landscaping or the parking or the building itself. So we're just trying to figure out a way to make this so we get a high quality tenant there. And because if it's not, we're going to get a B or a C tenant. The neighbors are not going to be happy with what's going to happen to them when that happens. So we're going to do the best we can with whatever it has been. So we look forward to you guys if you want more of a communication, a conversation. But we've been against this from the start. We were not involved in any of the process. Ken and Sarah have been great. They've been trying to keep us involved in what are the options, but the process has been very much an ongoing, like it was predetermined it was going to happen, and here we are. So we're not trying to be bad neighbors. We're not trying to be bad residents of the Palm Springs area. We're just trying to figure out how to protect our family's investments in this property and just do what's best for the building and best for the neighborhood. And so if could we at least narrow this down to something that is a little tighter than everything. Thank you very much.
No further speakers.
Thank you. The public hearing is now closed. Is there any discussion or additional questions from council? Mayor Pro Tem Bernstein.
Just ask, is there any option to separate the carport and parking and landscape? Is that even an option to separate that from the Class 1, from the designation?
Yes, what you're looking at, the distinction that you're talking about is the difference between what are character defining and what are not. When a designation of historic nature is made, it's made on the parcel itself. So the eligibility for a Mills Act contract, for example, is related to the parcel on which the tax number is based. So what the council chooses to do with this, if it does choose to designate this parcel, as you identify the portions or the things on that parcel that are the historically significant things. If the council feels that it's only the building, that could be what you define. If the council feels that it's the building plus the landscape or other pieces, you can make those decisions and posture it in that way.
Thank you. That was my question.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Councilmember Middleton.
Okay, thank you. I'm really struggling with this one. I absolutely want to save this building. And we have precedent that we are at times willing to designate a structure as a Class 1 structure when the owner does not want that to happen. And frankly, some of those precedents have demonstrated that that has been successful. If one need only to look at the Tockwitz Plaza, for which I'm very familiar, that the decisions of Planning Commission and City Council to preserve those buildings made them actually better buildings for the owners and certainly for the community. That said, a criteria that just simply says once you meet the criteria, the desires of the owner of the building are essentially immaterial is something that I'm not comfortable with. I think we need to have further criteria when there is opposition. And I do not think the owners in our city get to veto that. That will never happen. So what I heard from the owner was a desire for further conversation. And it would certainly be my recommendation that council be absolutely clear. We're going to save this building, and we're going to save most particularly the relief that's attached to the building as it is now, but that we give the owners and staff and the preservation community a chance to continue a conversation to see if we can come up with something that would be a designation that everyone is comfortable with. The last thing we need is another blighted building in Palm Springs.
Thank you. Additional comments? Mayor Pro Tem?
So first of all, I just want to say I am a big advocate for preservation of historic buildings in this city, and I think it's not just for architectural importance, but it's also important to our brand. And as we do head into Modernism Week with 100,000 plus attendees, you see how important it is to our economy as well. And I've walked this building. It is a beautiful building. My comments about the landscape were not so much, the landscaping is integral. I can see that. It's just whether there's strict controls on the plants, which right now are actually a little bit hodgepodge. From what I've seen, there's bougainvillea and palm trees and also real native plants. But I also, in full disclosure, I was the tenant in the Town and Country. At the time, it was made Class 1 historic over the landlord's objections. So I have some experience with this, and I did feel like I contributed to proof that adaptive reuse does work. But I will say it's not always easy. Union Bank is not only being sold to U.S. Bank, but the number of bank branches are dwindling. So it seems unlikely that there would be another bank just waiting to go in, although that could certainly happen. And that the most important way to ensure preservation of the commercial building is to make sure that it's commercially viable. And so while I support very much the preservation historic designation of this building, I would strongly urge the staff and preservation community to work with the owner and any other future tenants to assure that somebody can occupy this and be able to make it work and thrive and prove that adaptive reuse, continue to approve, as we have done and Capitol Plaza has done and many others, that it can work. So I think the work of the preservation community has started with this, but it should continue while we have, when the building, if the building is sold, or if there's a new tenant that moves in, to help do what they can to make it viable. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councilmember DeHart.
Agree with certainly what Pro Tem Bernstein and Councilmember Middleton have said. And I want to emphasize, if we don't save the buildings, then they're just not going to be here, and we're going to lose all the character of Palm Springs. And that's not an issue. That's not what we're debating. And if any building that we're going to save, and this certainly would fall into that category from my point of view. I'm just drawn with the challenge of the owner and the owner's point in time that they got involved with the detailed reports and the research that was being done, which is incredible research and tells a great story about this property. So I would like to support what Council Middleton had suggested, is that we ask the Preservation Foundation and the Preservation Board to sit down one more time and see if we can help satisfy some of the concerns that the owner has, and then get to the point that we can classify this as a Class 1 historic resource.
It sounds like we have a motion and a second on the floor. Is that correct?
That's a motion.
Okay. And the motion is, Councilmember Middleton, do you want to repeat?
The motion is to defer action on this proposal and to direct staff to sit down with the owners, with the preservation community, hopefully all three groups sitting together, and to do their very best to work through a resolution that preserves the building as intact, but also makes the best effort possible to ensure that the property is a viable property to be reused.
Thank you. And that's a second from
Yep.
Councilmember DeHart. Do we have additional comments? Councilmember, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree with everything that's been said. Thank you to my colleagues for saying that so well, and thank you to staff. This is an important building in the city of Palm Springs. I agree we want to preserve it, especially the panels are just really incredible, but absolutely want to see a way where this works for everyone. So to staff, do you procedurally need anything in the motion? Do we continue it to a date certain, or do you need anything else from us, or can that motion stand? I want to make sure people procedurally know what's going to happen as we walk.
I would prefer not to do a date certain, simply because I think we need to wrap our heads around what that process looks like. We have very clear procedures in the ordinance, so we would need to look at what other options are available to us. That will take some time.
Great, thank you. Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I just wanted to be clear, my comments were not to not go forward with the Class 1. It's just to work with the tenant or owner in the future. So I don't want my comments just misconstrued in that way.
Sure. Thank you for that clarification. Before we take a vote, I agree with my colleagues in terms of the importance of saving the building, but also have the same concerns about making sure the owner is part of the process. And I do want to just make one comment regarding the Robinsons building. I do know a little bit about the history of those current tenants, and the project was delayed because of the pandemic, and it was not because there was not a desire to open up that restaurant. It just was delayed for other reasons. And so we do know that these buildings can be successfully designated as historic and then relet many times over. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, ma'am. Councilmember Middleton.
Aye.
Councilmember DeHart.
Yes.
Councilmember Hostage.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bernstein.
No.
Mayor Gardner.
Yes.
4 yeses, 1 no, motion passes.
Thank you. The next item is item 2B, a public hearing to adopt a resolution amending the city's comprehensive fee schedule to incorporate the proposed vacation rental junior permit fee to become effective April 10th, 2023. Councilmember Holstage, you have a recusal?
I have a recusal because of a financial interest. Thank you. I'll leave the room.
Thank you. And now, as the council member is exiting, you can go ahead and start your staff report.
Good morning, good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. The item before you this evening is a request to adopt a fee for the vacation rental junior permit. In November 28th, past year, council adopted ordinance 2075, which amended the vacation rental Palm Springs Municipal Code section 5.25. The ordinance created a junior vacation registration certificate. This is a new certificate. It is limited to 6 contracts per year. Those are the amount of times that you may rent the home, and it is not subject to the neighborhood cap restriction. So for those neighborhoods that have exceeded the 20% saturation limit, they would be eligible to apply for this permit. In reviewing the current number of permits, which is at 2,613, and reviewing the inquiries that we have received for the junior registration permit, we are proposing that we calculated the number utilizing 1,306, which is 1/2 of the current permits. Currently, the fee for a regular vacation rental permit is $1,009. The permit fees do reflect the amount that it costs to process these permits. We do not generate income, so we only collect fees to pay for the staff time, for the issuance, for the enforcement, and for the program, the vacation rental program. We did in 2020 engage with Capital Accounting Partners to conduct a thorough review of the costs associated with the vacation rental program. They conducted numerous staff interviews and reviewed processes, and they were able to calculate the cost to generate vacation rental permits. We utilized those figures, updated, of course, the current salaries of positions in determining what the fee would be for this junior permit. This is a copy of the table that is in your staff report. It lists all the positions in the department. It has our rate of pay, the amount of hours it takes to generate the permits. In calculating the current permit, we divided all staff time by 1/2, with the exception of one account clerk position, because they do the entire paper processing of the permit, so theirs would still remain at 100%. Here you will see the totals. There is also finance positions, support from code and PD as well when they have to respond to vacation rental calls. For the total amount of labor dollars, that was divided by the number of projected permits that we anticipate, which came to the total of $642.53, which is why we are recommending the cost of $642. We will also be monitoring the processing to determine if that amount is correct. This is a new permit class, so we do not know how it will impact code. We do not know how it will impact staff as well. There will be different monitoring necessary as opposed to regular permits due to the contract limit restrictions. And additionally, we are in the process of implementing new software to assist with permitting. So that will also impact staff time. So we do want council to know that we will be monitoring this and bringing it back to council should we need to for additional review and analysis.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions for staff? Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Do you have any sense, the 1,306, you think those are all additional permits?
Yes, we have had a tremendous amount of interest in the junior permit, especially in the neighborhoods that have exceeded the saturation limits.
And do you think anybody out of the 2316, is there 2613, any indication that people with those regular permits would go down to the junior to save money?
Very limited. Those calls have been extremely limited. Most individuals want to maintain their traditional permit.
Okay, and just somebody who does a junior permit, this is only for the short term, less than 28 days. They can still do however many month-long permits they want.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Pardon me. Are there any other questions? Go ahead, council member.
Thank you, and thanks for all of the work that's gone into this. I do have some concerns regarding staffing and as to whether or not there's adequate staffing here. I'm willing to go forward with this, and let's take it step by step and determine what the needs are, since we are really embarking onto some new territory here. But I'm going to place it down immediately that staffing looks to be very lean to me, and this is an area whenever our staffing has been lean, we run into trouble. I'm particularly cognizant of the demand that is likely to come from some of the neighborhoods where they currently exceed the 20% limit. The temptation to exceed the 6 permits that is allowed is going to be very strong for many of those, and that is going to require additional enforcement activities to make sure our contract limits are not exceeded there. So that's probably more comment than question, but it comes back to the simple question, are you certain you have the staff you need to do this?
I am extremely proud of the staff that our department has. They are very hardworking. We have discussed this internally in preparation for this report. One of the items, that, as I stated, is we do have new software that will be implemented that is going to help tremendously with the paper processing, essentially eliminating the majority of it, which will allow staff to focus on the enforcement of this program.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, great. At this time, I'd like to open the public hearing. The public is invited to speak for up to 2 minutes on this item. City Clerk, do we have any speakers?
We have no speakers for this public hearing.
Great. Seeing none, the public hearing is now closed. Are there additional questions or comments from council? Councilmember DeHart.
Yeah, I think I fully plan on supporting the proposal for the junior permit. I'm really concerned, though, about the bandwidth that we think our current staff has, and we're not building into our total cost the staffing costs that may exist. So I'm looking at 10 hours processing for each application that comes in for 1,306 applications, and that we're assuming 2 staff members are going to take on the full load of processing those applications, 2 current staff members. So I'm just concerned that we look at the big picture to make sure we've got all the resources so we can make sure that the program's a success.
Great, thank you. Any other comments? No? Oh, go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
So if you determine that there isn't enough, I mean, the junior permits are moving forward. If you determine that there isn't enough, what would happen in terms of the fees?
We would propose to for additional staffing, and at that time we would reevaluate the fee and adjust it accordingly.
Okay, and could the fee possibly go down or not?
Yes, it could go down. So we, like I stated, we have a new software program, GovOS, which will be implemented we are looking at March, and that's going to help tremendously with the paper processing. So that is one of the reasons why we didn't propose new staff at this time. We don't know how that software is going to impact staff, but we believe it will be all positive.
Okay, and I agree with Councilmember Middleton. We want that. I think there will be a good demand for this, and we just want to make sure that they aren't getting around our current ordinance. This was a good opportunity for people to have limited rentals, and especially at key times. So thank you.
Great, thank you all so much. I am also concerned about staffing, and I know I was recently at a conference, and there's a company that monitors vacation rentals and makes sure and notifies the city about whether or not there are illegal rentals and does all of that work for us. And I know that many other cities in the valley use that. So it's just something for us to think about as we go through this process, especially if we're adding on many, many more additional vacation rentals, considering the issues that we've had in terms of illegal rentals and what that impact is for those who are paying for the proper fees in TOT.
Our new software will do that. Our new software monitors all the platforms and will report unregistered rentals.
Perfect. That's fantastic. And I think Veronica probably at another meeting at some point, we could get an update about how that software is working and if there's any additional staffing or needs that your department has. I think as you're hearing, we clearly want to support your efforts. Do we have a motion from anyone? Go ahead.
I move to approve.
Do we have a second? Second from Councilmember Middleton. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Bernstein.
Yes.
Councilmember Middleton.
Aye.
Councilmember DeHart.
Yep.
Mayor Gardner.
Yes.
4 yeses, 0 nos. Motion passes.
Great, thank you very much. The next item, item 2C, which is an application for the Via Roma Homeowners Association, is going to be moved to our next meeting on February 21st, 2023. So now we are now moving on to item 3A. I think Councilmember Holstage is on her way, so I'll just introduce the item. Item 3A is to appropriate $3 million for the Palm Springs Navigation Center, approve a resolution adopting a non-discrimination policy for home key funded projects, and receive an update on the Navigation Center project. And here she is. Fantastic. If we can have a staff report, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. This item involves various requests for ongoing implementation of the Navigation Center. That includes appropriating additional funds for the project, adopting a non-discrimination policy for home key funded programs, and to provide an update on the Navigation Center project. And to provide you with an update on the project design is our project architect, Lauren Rath, who is with JFAK. Linda Barak is also available to answer questions you may have on the operational aspect of the project. And Greg Rodriguez with the County of Riverside, who we are partnering with on this project, is also available. And staff will be available to answer any questions you may have. Why don't I have Greg come on up to provide some comments from the county perspective. And when you're done, we get Lauren going.
What's that? Okay. Good evening, Mayor. It's nice to be able to call you Mayor. And council members, and again, congratulations, Mayor Pro Tem Bernstein and Mr. DeHart. I'm not going to spend a lot of time. I know that even the new members of council have followed this development very closely, but we as a county continue to partner. We actually were able, I think most of you know, able to allocate another $5.5 million for the project from our partnership with Inland Empire Health Plan through some CalAIM dollars. So we were very happy that we were able to further incentivize the program here. Again, we'll just continue to partner. I think you're going to get a good staff report, and I'm mainly here to answer any questions that you might have at the end.
Okay, if we could have Lauren and Linda in the room, please. Just for the presentation. If we could let them in through Zoom. Thank you. And have the slide presentation back up also. Thank you very much. Okay, Lauren, it's all yours.
Everyone, pleased to be here. I can share screens from my end, I believe. Give me just a moment here. Okay. All right, so we're checking back in with an update on the Palm Springs Navigation Center. We'll talk through this. First, we'll kind of review the site design. We'll show some floor plans for buildings 8 and 24, which are the service buildings on the project. And then we'll show some floor plans for the modular units, the 80 units of housing that this project will be providing. So this is the overall campus design. This is McCarthy Road here. This is the existing campus site. There's buildings 8 and 24 are 2 existing warehouse buildings that will house the primary services for the project. Building C is not a part of this immediate scope, but it will be used for future use. And right now there's a big parking lot on the site. So we'll be developing the rest of the site and locating modular units at the southeast side of the project. North is up, I should say, when you look at any of these images. And we've spoken to this before about we're really seeking to create a welcoming environment that emphasizes safety and dignity and community. And we're working together with our landscape architect on strategies to make a really welcoming environment using screening landscape and trees to make a pleasant environment. This is the site plan kind of diagramming out a lot of the thinking. The northmost building 8 there is the primary It's a day-to-day building, open during regular daytime hours, where there's staff who can, where initial intake for people who come to live in the Navigation Center housing would meet with case managers and whatnot. Building 24, we'll look at the plan for that shortly, but it provides more around-the-clock staffing and services to the people who would live in the housing. And here's the housing units at the southwest side of the site. They're arranged in these rows and along a central promenade that connects between the two service buildings, 8 and 24 at the northeast, all the way to the southwest corner, where there'll be a children's play structure and a fenced dog run for residents that have their pets with them to get some exercise. The units are connected, kind of facing each other to create little kind of sub-communities within this neighborhood. And you can see the units that are in the darker blue, those mean it's stacked 2 stories high. So in order to get all the housing units onto the site, we did have to stack some of them. We tried to concentrate those 2-story high units more towards the center, away from the edges. And you can see in this plan, we're implementing a lot of strategies of using screening trees to create buffers around the site and make it feel safer and eliminate sight lines in and out from surrounding properties. The southeast corner of the site is some parking areas. We also have the green arrow. The green arrow here is showing where vehicles like service trucks would come if they're having deliveries for the kitchen. There's also like a trash compactor room in this area as well. So we'll, I think, move on to the floor plans next. We're going to look at building 8, the northmost building first, and then building 24. This is the floor plan for building 8. This is where if someone is coming to live in the modular housing, they would initially come off of McCarthy Road through these doors. They'd check in with reception, and then there's a series of intake staff, case managers that would help them get situated and make a plan for, or help them make arrangements in the housing. This building also includes conference room. There's employment services, computers for people living in the housing to use, as well as hold job workshops, get additional training and job seeking activities. There's a multi-purpose room here, which could be used for different uses by the community, as well as staff and residents of the Navigation Center. Building 24, so that's to the south of building 8. Is primarily used, it is not used by people coming off the street, the public. This is only really used by residents of the modular unit housing. So their housing is to the west of here. They would come from their units in through these doors. There's a security office here, which has sight lines out onto the site, as well as they'll have connection to security cameras monitoring the site. And so people who live in the housing would come in through those doors. They can check in with security office, but they have access here to a community dining room and multi-purpose room. They can enjoy meals here, or and as well as this larger community corridor, which they can have gatherings in. There's the purple area here is a commercial kitchen that can be used to prepare meals. And then there's also other services in this building for residents, laundry facilities. There's a health and wellness center that may include some recuperative care services for people who are recovering from an illness and were discharged from the hospital. There's also, you can see in the gray at the south, that's the location of the loading dock and trash room. And from there, we're going to look back at the modular units. This is an aerial view. We're looking from up high at the west part of the site. This gray in the front is that building C, which we're not developing as part of the site. What you see in the back view there is that's building 24. So the modular units are arranged. You can see some of them are stacked too high. We're still finalizing kind of colors and designs, so none of this is decided or finalized quite yet, but you can see how they're arranged and how that massing works. how the trees sort of help shield and shelter and make it a more pleasant area. This back corner here is where the dog run and the children's play area will be. And here's some plans for those modular units. So there's going to be 80 units total of housing provided. The typical, we're using these prefab modular units because they can get built faster. There's a lot of efficiency that provides. And the typical unit is 10 feet by 40 feet long. This is what we call the standard studio type. It actually includes 3 living units within it, studio units, and each of those will have a bed with underbed storage. Each unit has its own individual shower, toilet, and sink, and then there's space for a microwave, under-counter refrigerator, a hot plate, so people can prepare their own meals. There's heating and air conditioning and windows for natural light. There's some variations on this. This is what we call a large studio type. So there's 2 of the units per module. This module is only 32 feet long, a little bit smaller, but it provides a kitchenette that also includes an oven, range, microwave, and refrigerator. And there's a version we call the extra large studio. This is a handicapped accessible unit. So the bathroom is larger for someone who uses a wheelchair. We have a little bit larger beds in here to accommodate different types of people as well. And there's also a family unit type, which is a 2-bedroom. So you only get 1 living unit within the 10-foot by 40-foot module, but has 2 separate bedrooms. Those actually have beds that have a pull-out trundle underneath, so you could have family there and more people living there. This also includes the kitchenette and the full bathroom. And that's it.
Thank you very much. Jay, do you have an additional presentation?
That's pretty much it. Mayor, I would just add in terms of the budget and adding the request to add additional funds, as mentioned in the staff report, this project's being impacted by cost increases such as labor and materials like many other projects. The revised project budget we received from our contractor was $31 million. We do have approximately $28 million now with all the funds that the county brought to the table. The Home Key 2 funds that we received, plus from the operational perspective, some of the Home Key 2 funds will be used for operations, as will be the HHAP funds that the city previously received award from the state. So with that, if you have questions, the team, I'm sure, is happy to answer.
Great, thank you so much, and thank you, Lauren, for that presentation. It was really helpful. Council, do you have any questions or comments? Mayor Pro Tem, go ahead.
Yeah, a couple questions on the design. So with the modular units, is there the option to, once it opens, to add more than the 80 with like us double stacking all of them?
I'm going to ask the architect that. Lauren, is that something we can do?
In theory, you could. We would have to revisit that through the permitting process, of course, and ensure that we're meeting all codes, but they are being designed for a lot of the life safety exiting that you would need if they were 2 stories high. So in theory, that's something you'd be able to proceed with in the future.
And is there parking on the site for all the staff and any residents that potentially have cars?
Yes, we've worked with Linda, the operator, to evaluate what an appropriate amount of parking would be for that. But there is parking for staff and parking for residents who have vehicles of their own. We're also locating bicycle parking for people who have bikes.
Okay, I know there's a security plan, so they're not allowed, would they not be allowed to park on the street or if they did have a vehicle?
I believe all clients or residents would be parking on site. They would not be parking on the street. There is going to be some street parking increase, but it is intended to be staff that would use those spots along the street.
Okay. And are all the residents allowed to have pets?
Linda, I don't know if you can speak to that. I imagine there's a process, an application process.
Yeah, and there'll be parameters for the pet's wellness and that sort of thing.
Okay.
So if they enter with pets, we'd have to exclude alligators and things like that, but other than that, no, they will be allowed to enter. The pet will need to make sure the pet is wet. So there will be a process.
The question came up in public comment. Would there be an option for the animal shelter to help provide care for the pets?
Absolutely. We're looking forward to building collaborations. A little early, but we're looking forward to bringing in collaborators. And Jenny is a great advocate for animals, and they make a perfect partner. So I'm sure that'll move forward.
Okay. And then just a couple questions on the budget. The $5.5 million from the county, that came in after we realized we had the budget overage, or was that already there?
That was planned for a future phase, but was needed for this current phase. So it was already there, but having it available was helpful.
Okay. And we've known that construction prices are crazy. I think the report even said 21 they went up 13%, and 22 they went up 10%. Did we not anticipate that, or there was just additional parts, elements that we hadn't built in?
I think it was a combination of factors. Just the initial budget was very, very preliminary. It was roughly a per square foot, per unit calculation that got us through the application process with the home key. So that's what we had in our application at the lower number. But, as we listen to the community, listen to various other organizations and groups through the Resident Advisory Working Group, there was room for some improvements that we thought should be built into the design. And so Lauren and the team did take those recommendations and put them in. But then when Tilden Coyle priced everything out, we did see that we came out higher than we anticipated.
Okay. So do you have any estimate about what the increase in budget was due to additional suggestions, like another solar and quiet zones from the community versus just building costs?
It's really hard to say, because even if you add additional items, those costs go up too. We actually have a few items on the sidelines now that we'd still like to see incorporated into the project, but they total like an additional 1.6 million. So some of those factors, I believe they had to do with some improvements to the roof, skylights, things like that, we may have to hold off on till a future phase, or maybe it just doesn't get done as part of the project.
And are you confident now that with this additional money from the county and what you're requesting from the city, that is enough to do it? It's not going to come back in 6 months and say we need...
Well, we've had the benefit of professional contracting firm go through the numbers, source prices, and come up with this revised preliminary budget. So yes, I think at this level we ought to be able to build out as planned.
Okay, and just one last question. Is there been any discussion about Building C, what it would be used for? I know it doesn't have, it's hard for lodging.
Yeah, that's, unfortunately we had to grab some of the funds that were planned for Building C. So it is kind of up in the air, but the benefit is it does not have the limitations, at least right now, that the Home Key 2 funds have. So we could plan for any number of different uses in Building C. And that's probably a future discussion with yourselves and the community.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Great. Councilmember Holstage.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Jay and Greg and everyone on the team, Linda. and Lauren for all of your work, really incredible work. I love the presentation and the staff report. This has been a long time coming. Lauren, I really liked the photos you used of Palm Springs, showing the saguaro and some of our really cool elements of design. So I love that. Thank you so much for that excellent work. I just have a few questions also going on Building C and some other elements. So could you just speak a little bit more to that? So how much money were we setting aside for Building C? And, you know, what will we need to now fill our coffers for to make sure that Building C is usable?
It's usable now, to be frank. It's a big storage facility that we could put beds in, we could use as storage. It has office space that's usable. So it is usable now, but we were thinking of doing more improvements to perhaps make it a better living space so that it's not, you know, cold and damp for anybody who has to stay there. But the funds that we had moved over were from the Inland Empire Health Plan funds, Molina, which is really great that, you know, timing worked out, having those funds come to the county and be available. But planning-wise, for Building C, you know, we kind of ended with the possibility of it being used as additional shelter space. And that's what we were hoping the IAHP funds could have helped provide. Now, that being said, we are actively planning and looking at additional funds. Encampment resolution funds is an application we're working on to apply for. We are working potentially with new market tax credit providers to get additional funds to bring into for the whole facility, different aspects of that. And so, you know, we're keeping a close eye on the funds being made available by the state and federal government for uses like this.
Thanks. That's what I was going to ask. Are there state budget asks or other requests that we should make for Building C? Because I'm concerned about Building C. I've been in it a few times. I don't think it's highly functional and usable, right? It needs work. And so I would be concerned about the dangers of having it there and not fully functional or creating a problem or something like that, right? So I'd love to get Building C moving forward however we can. Is Building C accessible from the street? I saw that there's a tree. I think you said that it potentially could be, but right now we're blocking it with trees and foliage. Is that right?
There's a potential pathway on the north side of Building 8 that may be a pathway from the street to Building C.
Right. So it potentially could be used, accessed by the public or others from the street in the
Yes.
future.
Yes.
Right, that was our plan. Okay, and then could you just detail the money again? The number one question we get is where the city's $10 million went, and I think it's a little bit unclear just because it shows the city funds for the capital as only $160,000, but obviously
sure.
we've put more funds into it than that. So can you just
Right.
detail that for the public so people don't think anything else happened with it?
Right. You know, the operations side of this is going to be very intensive. Security, staffing, I think the ratio was 1 staff person for every 8 residents, which is a very low ratio. And Linda, I'm looking at you if that's not accurate. But so we do need to reserve a fair amount of the resources for operations, and that is where we are planning to utilize that $10 million, not the entire $10 million. And, you know, what you may not know is that a good amount of the $10 million has already been spent on Vista Sunrise 2, which will provide permanent supportive housing units. So there's that. There's an allocation for the Aloe Palm Canyon project, and combined, that's $4 million of the $10 million, and $5.3 million is being planned for the operations at the Navigation Center. The remaining $700,000 we're using for administrative costs.
And that number is 3.5 clients to one staff member.
Thank you.
Okay.
So if there are other, if we need to think through, I know we talked about this before, but the operations funding and the total budget, and also including, again, state budget asks or other asks that we need to make of other agencies, I think we should put that together now in this process so we can really get that started. I just have a few other questions. So could you speak a little bit about the playground area? So there's a kids area. Is it going to be grassed? Is it going to have a play set? What will that look like? Do we know that yet?
Linda, Lauren, I'll turn to you for that one.
Yes, so there'll be a play structure. It will have like a slide and kind of a climbing area. That area immediately around that is intended to be like a fibrous mulch material, so it's soft for kids to play in. And there'll be trees and landscape around for shading, and there's enough space to run around and play. And nearby, there'll be kind of some like seating area, like concrete benches for people to sit on and kind of enjoy the park like area. And yeah, so it should be quite pleasant. And but we're working with our landscape architect to make sure it's fun and safe for the kids as well.
Thank you. Will there be an actual wall around the property? I see there's trees and shading. Is it walled?
Yes, the existing site has like the
Pony
orange
wall.
heavy line. If you have that drawing in front of you, is existing like CMU perimeter wall around the site, concrete masonry unit. So it does have a very solid, secure kind of fence around the outside. And then we are doing some additional fencing inside the site to separate the parking area from the housing units. I believe our drawings are calling for like it's a 10-foot high, I believe, metal fence.
Thanks. Are there any elements from the resident advisory group that you didn't include or that we should be aware of to discuss tonight? And thank you to Mayor Pro Tem Bernstein for asking the question about which increased the cost. I think that's a really important point that I was interested in as well. So do you have any notes about what was requested and if anything didn't get included or what that primarily included?
We have, sorry, Lauren. Why don't I rattle off a few of these and you can respond. We have a fair amount of rooms in the facility as flex spaces, and the ROG indicated it'd be great if we had some calming rooms, areas where individuals could go and say de-escalate any anxieties that they might be going through. They also mentioned having security booths for people to check in and out of the facility at. More plants, a mediation area or quiet zone again to have a little more peace and enjoyment on the site. And I think there were recommendations for staggering doors to give people more privacy, and that's difficult to do with the modular shape that we're working with, though I think we've accomplished some of that. And shade structures, I don't know where we left off with that. That was a price point, and so I'll let Lauren and Linda address those.
Yeah, we've tried to incorporate a lot of that feedback, and we do have another upcoming meeting with the Resident Advisory Working Group coming up. I would say a couple of the things that we've talked about with them that at the moment we don't have set in stone on the path forward is there's one kind of shade structure as a buffer between the housing to the north and the kind of potential view corridor into the site. We're working out how to make that work with our budget. And then we've also talked about a lot of community art aspects that I don't know if they're not really accounted for in the budget right now. I don't know if that's something we'll be able to seek donations from, or if there's like an art committee that has some input on that, but that's another one we haven't been able to fully implement so far in the design.
Thank you. I have no further questions, Madam Mayor.
Great. Councilmember Middleton.
Right, thank you. Well, most of my questions have been asked and asked very well. The huge question. Can you give us a broad overview of the timeline, and when will we see occupancy at the Navigation Center?
It's difficult to answer. There's a lot of moving targets here. It's looking pretty good with getting the modular units on site. I think they may actually be in place by September 2023. But, we're trying to move up procurement on a number of the other items that may or may not be necessary for launching a portion of the project, say, as sort of a soft opening of types. But it is difficult to answer given the availability of products right now for construction and other building materials.
Madam Mayor, is it time for comment?
Comments are welcome.
All right. Jay, that's not good enough. And I don't mean that personally, but we need a timeline that is going to work. And there is no higher priority in the city than getting this open. And as I have listened to the presentation this evening, I am thrilled with the attention that's being given. But I am very fearful that we are planning this thing to death and we will not get it open. There is no higher priority in the city than getting this facility open, and whatever resources are needed to get it open, we need to know them now, and we need to move much faster than a September date.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Bernstein.
Yeah, I just want to add to that. If there are things, and there's a lot of great things in here, and actually I have to say the plans look better than I thought they would. But if there are things which can be done without delaying, and happen after it opens, getting this open as soon as possible is more important than some of these additions. They should happen, but I don't want to delay it to have it perfect. And I think the timing is really key, and I think we need to have an exact timeline when this is going to open, and at least be functional, if not finished. I also wanted and I'll bring this up at the end, but my comment about having a renewable source for our housing from potentially a portion of the vacation rental taxes, especially since we just approved the fees for additional permits. We're going to start seeing a lot of revenue if we can make sure that comes to council sooner rather than later. We know we don't have a lot of money left out of the 10 million, and we're going to need to have sources for that going forward. So hopefully we can get that on an agenda soon. But thank you, and I agree, timing is the key.
Thank you. Councilmember Holstage.
Thank you. I just want to clarify for the record and for the public and the news who might be listening. So we actually have deadlines about getting the money deployed and getting this open, right? So it isn't correct to say we don't know when it will open. Can we just get more clarification for the public who heard that we didn't have a good answer, but actually there are tight turnarounds that we're moving forward and we have to meet to get the dollars, right?
That is correct. However, we are working with the state to extend those deadlines. As it's just imminent that we're going to have to extend the deadlines. And the first deadline would be July 2023. Oh, yeah, please, Greg.
Yeah, can we hear from Greg? Thank you.
Just a couple points on this. Believe me, there's nobody in the city that wants this open faster. But keep in mind, this is not like popping up the shelter systems that's on the I-10 and Banning. This is a permanent, well-built structure. There have been severe supply chain delays, even just SCE, who've been great partners to work with. So we are at a point now, though, that things are moving much quicker, so you will see. I agree that if there is the possibility to at least get the units open sooner rather than later without the full wraparound services, that's what we'll strive to do. The other thing on the timeline stuff, We are not the only project pushing the timelines back. I just want to make that clear to the public. It's happening to Project Home Key operations throughout the state. And so the state, again, is being very flexible. They want it built quickly. But again, this is happening across the state. I want to address the operations questions because it's a very good question. In addition to ideas that you have as council members in some permanent revenue sources, Linda, as an operator, Martha's is amazing. At the philanthropic side that I think we can expand on within the city. And then additionally, and Linda's very good at this as well at Martha's already with her respite care program, there are a lot of opportunities within CalAIM, which is the new program under Medi-Cal for billing. I was actually just at a conference last week with the Department of Healthcare Services Director, and they are looking to actually expand more of their reimbursables under what's known as community supports under CalAIM. And many of those will be around temporary housing, transitional housing, and even permanent housing. So a lot of the operations, I do believe, will be able to be funded through CalAIM as well.
You're absolutely correct. And it's an amazing program. When you all have some time, we'll have to talk about it.
Thank you. Thank you for that additional information. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree with Councilmember Middleton that urgency is key. We want to get something that up as quickly as possible, and it's urgent. So thank you for your work building a beautiful, well thought out project with that urgency in mind.
Am I able to add a comment to this? I just would like to give an update that, so the project is in the plan check approval process right now. We have been developing the construction drawings. So it is moving through that permitting process. And the contractor, the general contractor, is executing their contract with they bid out the award of the fabricator for the modular units. So they're being signed on. So things are moving ahead. And with the schedule, the biggest kind of up in the air issue we're trying to solve and expedite is with Southern California Edison, the electrical service. Adding 80 units of housing does require the electrical service to the site to be upgraded. And their equipment, Edison's equipment, takes a long time to get, and they have a lengthy service planning process we have to work through with them to get them to sign off on the engineer's proposed new electrical equipment. So that's really what we're running into is like the most significant factor slowing down the process. But we are working on creative ways to expedite that as much as we can.
Thank you. Please let us know if there are ways we can help with that.
Thank you all very much. I echo the comments made by my fellow council members that this is of the utmost priority, and I know that Jay and Greg and everyone in the community knows that as well. So we really appreciate all of your efforts on this, and to Lauren and Linda as well. Thank you very much. Do we have Councilmember DeHart, go ahead.
Hey, Jay, we're commonly hearing the question about how are we going to ensure Palm Springs unhoused are first access and the worry and concern that people are going to come from down valley and fill our 80 units before we have a chance to accommodate folks right here in town.
I don't have a good answer for that. So let me ask Greg, who's very familiar with this process.
So it's a great question, and it comes up at all of these type of meetings. The facts and data actually show that homeless individuals actually aren't that transient, and that's been the issue with Palm Springs is that we don't have. And when I say transient, it means it's not they're moving somewhere for a shelter aspect. That's the issue we have here in the west part of the valley is we don't have a sheltering facility. And so the individuals who are on the street do not want to go down valley. That would be much the same case. And you see that in the data that's there as well. Due to fair housing laws, there's issues, even though this is transitional units. But I think it's the goal, and I don't want to put words in Linda's mouth, but I know it's my goal on us as a county, and I believe Linda's as well, that the whole purpose of putting this in Palm Springs is to address the unhoused problem here in Palm Springs in the west part of the valley.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
I can't guarantee you that. I can't guarantee that you will not get an individual from Desert Hot Springs or Cathedral City, but you won't get an influx of people, say, from Riverside, the Pass area, anywhere outside the valley, and I don't even anticipate east part from the eastern part of the valley.
I think that's great for people in the community to hear it because, like you said, it comes up quite frequently.
Yeah, and just a couple other notes too is I am in conversations with other cities in the valley, specifically like Desert Hot Springs, the Cathedral City. They're looking at how they address some of the issues within. So whether that's an access center, hopefully potentially shelter system or navigation center down the road as well. So.
Yeah, excellent. The other thing, Jay, we heard earlier about the concern for our animal, our pets, and their welfare. I think I would rather see the conversations with that kind of a partnership happening on the front end instead of waiting till we get too far down the road where it's too late to make accommodation. So my recommendation would be that we get with the Palm Springs Animal Shelter soon and make sure that we're doing the right thing.
Yes, Councilman, that's an excellent idea.
Last question I had was, in Building 8, how many people are we projecting are going to go through that building on a daily basis?
Are you looking at me?
Yes.
Okay. It will vary. If you really, when you think about it, excluding kids, you've got 80 people. And we call it Building 8, and we keep talking about it being like Monday through Friday, but we do flex our case managers and employment people. But they're normally there during normal operation, but also can stay over or extend, we can stagger schedules so that we can meet all the needs of the clients. So I would say you'd probably have 30, 40 a day. But if we're really successful, then we've got them employed and moving them now through their housing search. So as you load it up in the beginning and as people access, because you know Martha's has a placement rate of 80%. Of those that they serve, even now when we're hearing that there's no available housing. We just kind of make it happen. So that would be my estimate at this time, that's what we would see. Because in the beginning, they work with a case manager more, and as they're stabilized and tasked and moving forward, they will see their case manager possibly less. But then as they leave, more people come in, and then the cycle just continues.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah, not an easy one, not an easy question.
And Councilman, the residents will be those being served, and they each have bathrooms in their units. And I think.
Yeah, and just to emphasize again, and especially for the public, that this is not like a drop-in, drop-out facility. So it's specifically for the residents on the campus.
Yeah.
So initially, your traffic may be higher than what will happen as more individuals are housed there.
Yeah, but we're not expecting hundreds of people
Not at all.
walking through.
No, because it's not the type of center where you go in for, it's not like the access center where anybody can walk in and get services.
Yeah.
It's specifically mostly referral from law enforcement and other service partners, hospital discharge, et cetera, but it's specifically for the residents on campus. We did that on purpose because of what we had heard from the residents, that we didn't want, want that access. Plus, this model works better than those kind of drop-in, drop-outs. Not that the access center doesn't work, Linda, so it's no slam on
Now,
your
come on. It's going to be a perfect partner with navigation.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Do we have a motion to approve this budget?
Move to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem and a second by Councilmember DeHart. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Bernstein,
Yes.
Councilman DeHart,
Yes.
Councilman Hostage,
Yes.
Councilman Middleton,
Aye.
Mayor Gardner.
Yes.
5 ayes, 0 noes, motion passes.
Thank you very much for all your work. At this time, we will be taking a 10-minute break. We will be back at 7:44. Thank you. Thank you for your patience as I learned that my watch is broken. We're going to get back into the meeting. The next item on the agenda is item 3B, to adopt a resolution determining and recognizing areas in the city not located in a city-recognized neighborhood for the purpose of Palm Springs Municipal Code, Chapter 5.25 on vacation rentals. And I'd just like to note for the record that Councilmember Holstage is recused from this item due to potential business interest, and she will return after this item. Staff report, please.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and Council. At this time, I'd like to hand over the presentation to our Executive Program Manager, Patrick Clifford. He's done a tremendous amount of work on the maps and on the neighborhood saturation, and I just wanted to recognize the exemplary work he's done and hand it over to him.
Good evening. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. As Veronica said, my name is Patrick with the Department of Special Program Compliance. Before you this evening is a staff report regarding recognizing areas that are not located in a city-recognized neighborhood for purposes of the vacation rental chapter only. Back on November 28th, 2022, City Council adopted Ordinance 2075. What this did was it put and established a vacation rental cap in organized neighborhoods up to 20%. So how this our department administers this is we use the boundaries of a city's official recognized neighborhood and appropriately administer how many vacation rentals are in a city recognized neighborhood compared to that to total residential housing in that neighborhood, and then determine if it's over a 20% or under a 20%. And currently there are 52 neighborhoods that are organized in the city, but staff has identified 14 areas that are in the city that are not included in these organized neighborhoods. In these 14 areas, what we have designated as RA or residential areas, there are 51 vacation rentals as of January 26th, with five applications in process. And from our estimates with GIS, there's a total of 3,470 total residential units within these 14 areas. Additionally, in your staff report, I believe on page 2, this table is provided, and this breaks down our analysis from each residential area regarding how many vacation rentals that are currently in that area, how many are processing in that area, total residential units that we found in that area, and what the current percentage is based off the current registered vacation rentals and what that would be when all the pending applications have been processed. And so in total, like I mentioned, there's 51 vacation rentals with 5 applications processing, which looks to be 1.6% of the total population of residential housing. Staff has identified 3 options based off of the ordinance that was adopted, where it said that council can, by resolution, determine how city staff will administer the vacation rental ordinance in areas that are not defined as a neighborhood pursuant to the chapter. Option 1 would be to identify each of those residential areas, or RAs, as their own respective residential area, and then we would administer our vacation rental ordinance based off of that. Option 2 would be to take all the 14 areas and combine them into one neighborhood where we would then administer the vacation rental program appropriately. And option 3 would be to annex the identified RA area, or the 14 areas, into an adjoining recognized neighborhood. So option 1, identifying each area as their own respective residential area, it would be simply what you see here on the chart. We would, for purposes of the vacation rental chapter only, look at each area, and if an application came in for a vacation rental certificate we would then reference the residential area identified and see if it's, if the vacation rental certificate can be issued based off the percentage in that residential area. Option 2, combining all the areas, 14 residential areas into one neighborhood. We would do the same approach if an application came into our department. Instead of looking at it as 14 individual areas, we would then thus refer it to as one area, which as of today, if an application came in, that percentage cap is at, was of January 26, 1.46%, which is a lot way under our 20% threshold, which then we would administer a vacation rental permit in that sense. Option 3, if we do annex one of the RA areas into a neighboring neighborhood, staff would have to determine with direction from council, which neighborhoods an RA would go into. Potential impacts that we can see would be increasing vacation rentals in an organized neighborhood that might be close to the percentage threshold currently. For example, Lawrence Crossley and RA 11. So currently with residential area 11, just as for an example of a potential impact, there's 0 vacation rentals in that area. There is none processing, yet there's 200 residential units in this area. Lawrence Crossley currently has 13 registered vacation rentals with 1 application processing and 73 identified residential units, giving it a projected percentage of 19.18%. In theory, if we annex RA 11 into Lawrence Crossley, we could see that the current neighborhood percentage cap would drop from 17% down to 4.7%, thus allowing more vacation rentals to possibly go into that neighborhood, again, depending which residential area we annex compared to Lawrence Crossley. So that's the end of the presentation regarding that, and staff's looking for direction regarding which option would be best to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. I want to just quickly start with one question. In terms of option 3, can you make sure that I'm clear on this? We would only be annexing those sections into nearby neighborhoods for purposes of this vacation rental ordinance, not to require them to be a part of the neighborhood group. Is that correct?
That's correct. This is just for vacation rental administration of permits, nothing else.
Great. I just want to make sure that's clear for everyone, that it's not requiring, it's not adding anything to the actual NORG, it's just administrative. Do we have any questions or comments from council? Mayor Pro Tem, go ahead.
Yeah, cool. The example you gave in RA 11 Lawrence Crossley, is that the only one where one of these is near a neighborhood that is already high and could potentially add a lot more?
No, it's not the only one, just a good example that I found. There's probably a handful that would probably have the same impact on.
Okay.
I'm trying to think. I believe we also provided, that's also in the staff report, a map of the areas. They're highlighted in gray in the map that was provided. It doesn't show, they're kind of outlined in red as well. So we can have a similar effect, for example, with RA 6 in Twin Palms. It might be a similar impact with that, depending on if RA 6 has any vacation rentals, but we also will then include residential housings in Twin Palms. So we can kind of see maybe a similar effect in Twin Palms if we do the annex route.
Okay. And these residential units, do these include HOAs and apartments that may not be available, might not have rentals?
They do include all apartments, condos that may or may not allow vacation rentals.
Do you have any sense of any number of these RAs, like predominantly HOAs that could really never have any? Because some of them have no vacation rentals now. So are those ones that never really could?
Yeah, no, great question. So definitively, I don't know which areas would say yes or no, but if we look back on the table that's provided in the staff report too, the areas that don't have any vacation rentals currently, I mean, it'd probably be a safe bet that they don't allow vacation rentals right now, because there would be some, at least one or two, at least in that area, if they did permit vacation rentals. So it's a good, good possibility that the RAs that do have 0 in them right now probably do not allow vacation rentals.
So that's like 9 of them. So then all the vacation rentals could be in those other 5 RAs, giving them a very high percentage for that local area. But if we combine it into one big neighborhood for these purposes, it would also be those houses would count.
That's correct. If option 2, where you combine into one neighborhood, with all this potential, since it's only at a 1.46%, they will all go into areas that allow vacation rentals and not the areas that don't.
Okay. And in terms of administrative costs for you and your department, if you had all of these 14 as different ones, is that much more expensive or cumbersome than treating them all as one neighborhood?
No, if we take option 1 compared to option 2, it's not going to be an administratively cost difference at all. Really, it's just a reference check for our department to, once we get an application in, see if it's in an area that allows it or if it's over the percentage cap to process the application going further. So whether that's one group as one neighborhood or 14, it's not going to make a difference as far as staff processing.
Okay. I have a comment. Should I wait till the end?
No, you can go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, I think part of what we want to do is make the intent of the 20% limit was very specifically to have, 20% by neighborhood. So that was my concern with option 2, even though I know 1PS has recommended it, that it actually could take some of these neighborhoods, and because they get to count residents that aren't even near them, it could be higher concentration. So I'm concerned. I understand 1PS's position. One of the things they said to me was that it'd be a lot easier to administer as one, but if it's not, it seems like we could defeat the purpose of the cap by neighborhood. So, thank you.
Councilmember Middleton.
The Mayor Pro Tem does a really good job of asking all my questions. We don't have, well, let me start here. The last time that we met on this subject, one of the directions that was given to staff, and it's an extremely difficult one, I know, is to take and go through and look at all of the residential units in every neighborhood and all of those that are not in a defined neighborhood, and actually map out what residences are eligible to be vacation rentals because they are not in an HOA that does not prohibit or that does not allow vacation rentals, or they're not in an apartment where the city has taken and done that. How far along are you with that process of assessing all of the neighborhoods?
Yep. Thank you. We do have preliminary numbers back from our GIS team that has broken down by neighborhood how many single-family homes, how many condominiums, how many apartments, and I believe also mobile homes too. So that would allow us, staff, to compare areas where if it's a single family compared to single family, what that will do to the percentage caps if we choose to go that route. And relating to the condos, it doesn't go into detail that which condos allow vacation rentals compared to which condos do, but it does give us a count of how many condominiums in each neighborhood. So we have that broken down, and we just reviewed the preliminary numbers this week and look forward to further discussion to bring back.
To move to a comment, the amount of work and effort that went into getting the 20% by neighborhood, where right now we have about if I'm remembering the count I looked at, we've got something on the order of 2,600 and I think 88 vacation rentals. Only 51 of those are not in a neighborhood. I think it would be a mistake to move to option 3 that would profoundly impact many neighborhoods in terms of what their percentage numbers are going to be while we are in the process of assessing what's the accuracy for each one of those neighborhoods of how many homes in that neighborhood are eligible. Once we have all of that data, we would be in a much better position to assess whether or not something like option 3 is viable. If staff was to argue that either option 1 or 2 administratively was easier to administer, then I would feel very comfortable in going in with either 1 or 2. If what I'm hearing is they are, from an administrative standpoint, relatively even, I'm tending to defer to my colleagues between those 2 options, but I would be very strongly opposed to option 3.
Thank you. Councilmember DeHart.
Yeah, thank you. I think the spirit of the 20% cap would rule out option 3 for me. I think it would unfairly penalize some of the neighborhoods that would automatically get assigned a larger percentage overnight. So option 3 is really not even a consideration for me. And I think if we come in and we look at option 1 and 2, I like both of those options, but I think at the end of the day, if we combined all 14 neighborhoods in option 2, I think we're going to see a concentration of the 20% of total rental or total units that could be issued in all but 5 areas. Because if those zeros that are existing today are presumably existing because their HOA prevents the permits, we're going to have a high concentration in only 5 of these RAs to get our 20% cap. So I think, with that being said, I think it would be better to go with number 1 to identify them individually. But I could see us going with either 1 or 2, and I appreciate 1PS their time and their work to look into this. But I think I would rather see the 20% spread out in 14 neighborhoods than massed together in 4 or 5 neighborhoods. So that would lend me to number 1, I think.
Thank you. Patrick, can you clarify that? Because it's my understanding that the percentage is based on total number of units in the neighborhood, not whether or not they're allowed to have a vacation rental.
Correct. Right now, it's total residential units. So whether you have condos that do or don't, those both are counted as total residential units, and our vacation rentals are applied to that to make the percentage.
Great. So then we wouldn't have an over concentration in just several of those districts in those RAs, because as we see, there's zeros in many of them, and we do know that many of those are condo complexes, which probably don't allow them, but that would still count towards the percentage, right? So we would.
Yeah.
We wouldn't. Yeah. Or would we? Sorry, I'm mixing it up. If we have the RAs separated out 1 by 1, then are we going, I'm trying to figure out where we're going to have the largest number of increase in vacation rentals. If we separate them out 1 by 1, or if we have them combined into 1. And that really depends. Do you have the answer? Thank you. That's what I want to know.
It's calculated, excuse me, I just calculated this. So there's 1,518 homes in these neighborhoods that currently have 0. So if we assume that they are not allowed to have any, but they're counted in the total count, that means the other 5 neighborhoods, which have 1,952 homes, if all the vacation rentals were concentrated there, 20% of the 3,470, but all in those things, they could get up to what is basically 36%
Yeah, you would,
in those five neighborhoods could really go up to 36% if they get to count in the other 9, assuming the other 9 have 0 and always will have 0.
Okay, so then if we have them separated out, then it'll be fewer.
It'll be fewer. And I
Okay,
think
great.
it'll be fairer to those who want to keep the 20% cap within their neighborhood. And this is, again, you're saying that this is not administratively more expensive or cumbersome for your department, because that was a big concern.
no, correct. We just maintain the data, and whether we separate them to 14 individuals or 1, we'll be referencing the same information.
So my recommendation is option 1.
Right, okay. We're,
Is that correct, the way I said that?
no,
do you think?
you're correct. I
Yeah.
flipped mine. I flipped my answer. Yeah, I think if people want to go forward with option 1, that's fine with me. I'm just thinking of this impact overall. If you have places that don't allow vacation rentals at all, like you said, then you have another area that does, and they're all counted towards the total number of units, then.
That's why option 2 doesn't make sense. But
Right,
option
right.
1 keeps it, every area
Right.
has 20, either 20%, or in this case, 9 of them are going to have 0.
Right, but then in general, when we're looking at the 20% cap, we have some neighborhoods that are going to have a lot less vacation rentals just because there's a condo association connected to it versus another area that's going to have more. I'm just wondering, I guess my thoughts are, what do we, if we were to exclude places that cannot have vacation rentals and then only count units that can be vacation rentals, how would that impact
That
everything?
would reduce a lot.
That would be
That's
reduced a
down-
lot.
I mean, there's places like Melody Ranch that is almost all HOAs in a hotel.
Right.
So they almost have nothing.
That
So-
changes the whole makeup citywide.
Right.
So, and we don't have that number. So
Right.
I don't think we can.
But I am curious what that number is. And I know that's what what Councilmember Middleton was asking about, was what are those demographics for the city? What does it look like? But I think that when we're hearing complaints about vacation rentals, we are hearing about them in certain neighborhoods, and other neighborhoods we're not hearing it. And I think it has a lot to do with the characters of each of those neighborhoods and whether or not they're single family or not. This just seems to be an issue that really impacts some areas far more than others. And I struggle with that. But I think for this purpose of right now, option 1 makes sense, and happy to move forward with that if my colleagues also want to.
A motion?
Do we need a motion, or is this just direction?
I think we have to adopt.
I would recommend a motion, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I will make a motion to do option 1.
I second.
Can we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Gardner,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bernstein,
Yes.
Councilmember DeHart,
Yes.
Councilmember Middleton.
Aye.
4 ayes, 0 noes, motion passes.
Thank you very much, and thank you to my colleagues for making me less confused. The last item on the agenda is item 3C, a discussion of proposed amendments to the operations covenant, transient occupancy tax share, and site plan revisions for the Orchid Tree Hotel development located at 222 South Kauai Road. Let's just give Councilmember Holsage a second to get back in, and then we will proceed. Welcome back. Can we have a staff report on item 3C, please?
Madam Mayor and members of council, the item you have before you is a request by the owner of the Orchid Tree property for potential amendments to their operations covenant. Just a brief overview of why we are discussing this evening without going into the entire history of the Orchid Tree property. The project is subject to an operations covenant that was approved in 2019 relative to their transient occupancy tax. The amended agreement established project milestones, or basically a timeline for completion of elements of the project. For example, a timeline to submit their building permits, timeline to start construction, date for opening of the hotel property. They did not meet some of those milestones, and the owner has invoked a force majeure provision in the agreement, and as part of that has submitted a market report relative to being able to finance the project. So the proposed modifications that the owner is presenting to you is offered as a resolution to keep the project moving forward. One of the things I do want to point out, though, is that this is a discussion this evening. This would not be final action. There are other steps that we would need to go through. And so, again, we're trying to get your input on the request that the owner is making relative to their operations covenant. With that, let me go through some of the points that the owner is requesting, starting first with the performance schedule. What would be requested is to revise the project milestones or the completion dates of elements of the project. And part of that would be that construction must commence by March 1st of 2024, and then the additional project milestones in terms of the opening of the hotel, et cetera, would be revised accordingly. The owner is proposing to provide a $1 million security amount to the city if construction does not start by that specified date. They are also requesting a modification to the transient occupancy tax formula under the current agreement, which is the standard that we have for other properties that have entered into an agreement with us relative to transient occupancy tax, is that they receive 75% of the TOT for a 30-year period. What the owner is requesting is 100% of the TOT for the first 10 years of operation of the hotel, and then it would revert back to 75% for years 11 through 30 of the agreement. We have provided an analysis of the change in allocations in terms of what the city would receive over that time period, which is included in the backup to your staff report. One of the things to understand about this requested change is that based on the TOT ordinance, we would need to do this proposed change by a development agreement. And so the city would need to enter into a development agreement with the owner in order to make this change to their transient occupancy tax allocation. The next thing that they are requesting is to make revisions to the approved site plan. In doing a analysis and getting a bid for construction of the project as it is currently approved, it would be approximately $67 million, which poses some difficulty in financing the project. And so the owner has investigated modifications to the site plan that would assist in reducing the overall cost of the project while still retaining the amenities and the overall level of quality. The revised concept plan would keep the number of units the same, the parking the same, the amenities that are offered to the guest would be the same. But again, by being a little bit more strategic in terms of how this is developed, it would result in significant cost savings. One of the questions that we've had in discussion with the owner and also questions that we've had from council is, would Auberge Resorts still participate even with this revised site plan? There is a letter from Auberge in your packet relative to the fact that they have seen the revised site plan and still are in support of participating in the project. Just to go briefly over the revisions to the plan, the approved plan is on the left of the screen, and then the revised plan is shown on the right of the screen. And I realize this is at a scale that makes it very difficult for you all to see in this presentation. But just very simply, we have the church facility here and then the bungalow court here. Those are the two historic components of the project. What you'll see is here in the center, there are a number of new hotel buildings that are proposed, a central pool area, as well as another hotel building here at the bottom of the screen. And then there are multifamily buildings here on this end of the project that under the approved plan would have been demolished and new hotel units built there. In comparison, looking at the proposed plan, what it would do is still retain the church structure here, the bungalow court. It would move some of the functions out of the court, out of the church building to a new building here, and then the primary pool area. Sorry, my pointer is not working. The primary pool area would be moved here along the Kauai frontage, and then the majority of the hotel units would be here in a new 3-story building on the east side of the site. And then the multifamily buildings that are here on the north end of the site would be retained and significantly remodeled so that they have the same character as the new buildings that are being proposed. And so very quickly, that's a summary of the changes to the site plan that would reduce a lot of the site work and would simplify the construction plan and reduce costs. I just need to note that staff has not reviewed this for conformance to development standards. We would need to do that at a later point in time, looking at more detailed plans in order to do that. With the changes to the site plan, however, it would require going back before the Historic Site Preservation Board, the Planning Commission, and the Architectural Review Committee. As I had mentioned earlier, if we were to proceed with changes to the transient occupancy tax allocation, we would also need to do a development agreement, which would need to go before the Planning Commission and then be approved by the City Council. One of the things the owner has suggested in order to streamline this process so that they could begin construction as quickly as possible is that we hold joint meetings of these groups in order to facilitate the approval of those changes to the site plan. There are a couple of other things that they are requesting. One is the deferral of their building permit and entitlement application fees until year 3 of operations. The owner has also requested assistance with the costs for undergrounding utilities. I don't have a number of what those are, and perhaps the owner could answer that question for us. And then another thing that they are requesting is approval of condominium hotel units. That is permissible as part of a hotel project. It does require a conditional use permit. And then there are requirements in our zoning code in terms of it operating just like a hotel would. And so that's something that would be permissible under the zoning code, but does require a conditional use permit. In summary, the requests are as follows. Number 1 is a modification to the performance schedule, with the developer offering the payment of a $1 million security fee for not proceeding with construction by the specified date. They are requesting a modification to their TOT allocation for a period of 10 years, requesting revisions to the site plan, deferral of permit and entitlement fees, assistance with undergrounding of utilities, and then deal points would be memorialized through a development agreement. So that concludes my presentation to you in terms of what the developer is asking. Staff is looking for your input on these deal points. The developer is here to answer any questions you might have relative to those deal points. We also have Mr. Verada in attendance to respond to any questions about the TOT allocation, as well as our city attorney, Jeffrey Ballinger, to discuss procedures or process with you. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Madam Mayor, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. Does council have any comments or questions? Whichever you'd like. Go ahead, Councilmember DeHart.
For clarity, tonight we're being asked by staff to give direction on the proposed new deal points that have been presented by the developer, right?
Correct.
And that's all we're doing tonight?
Correct.
Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem, go ahead.
Okay, couple questions. How much are the permit fees and entitlements that want to be delayed, how much money is that?
I will apologize that I don't have those figures right at hand. Typically, for a project of this size, it's going to be several hundred thousands of dollars for the entitlement fees and the building permit fees. So it is a fairly substantial amount.
Okay. And if you have the hotel condos, does that reduce TOT?
No, it does not. Per the city's ordinance, it requires the condo hotel units to pay TOT just as any other hotel unit.
Okay. Is there any indication what these reduced plans, you said it was 67 million beginning, what that would be now? Do you have any?
The developer has mentioned a figure to me. I would request that he clarifies what the revision to the construction costs would be.
Okay. And the multifamily housing, is that actually separate from this property? Is it going to be, you said it's going to be renovated, but it's going to made to be look like part of the hotel, or is it still going to be separated?
No, it will be made to look like the hotel, and it will be operated as part of the hotel. Currently, they are multifamily housing units, but they would be refurbished as hotel units.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right. It's part of the 74. Okay. And so you said they have to go in front of historic preservation. So the idea of having the open air church, the open air restaurant, the church is an open air restaurant. They haven't weighed in on that.
No, the Historic Site Preservation Board has not reviewed that yet.
Okay. And in the past, when we've had guarantees for milestones for other projects, is that usually something that is effective?
Yes and no. As we've discussed with other projects, in times it has been effective for certain projects, others it has not. We can name another project on the north end of town who has not met their milestones either, and so we are in discussions with them. We also have another hotel project which has not met its milestones, and so there are cases where it has been effective, but there are also cases where it hasn't.
So are there ways to ensure that the financial can be effective?
There are ways. One of the things that the owner is offering is security for not meeting the construction deadline that they are proposing. That's certainly one of the ways, and the other thing that we can do is be a little bit more proactive on the part of the city in terms of following up with the developer when they don't meet milestones, revoking entitlements, things like that, that may be possible for us to do.
Okay. In the staff report, you mentioned that there was construction documents that were supposed to be submitted in '21. Was there any indication why those were not?
They have been submitted. I understand that they may not have been complete.
Okay. Okay, those are my questions for now. Thank you. Thank you, Flynn.
Thank you. Do any council members have comments or questions? Councilmember Middleton.
Flynn, the process that we would need does require approval from Planning Commission, from HSPB, and from others. How are we factoring in the timeline for those approvals? And I know the developers made a request that we combine those meetings, but that's not necessarily something that we can do or can guarantee that we can do, or we can guarantee what the comments and questions will be from those entities. Each one of them appropriately has their own judgments that they have to make. So I find myself concerned that if one of our commissions asks for more time to do more research, that we're going to end up in a very long, protracted then debate as to whether or not those timeframes were reasonable.
You're right that we want to make sure that our boards and commissions have adequate time to evaluate the project and to recommend improvements or modifications as may be necessary per our code requirements. One of the things we can do, and I might ask Attorney Ballinger to step in here, is that in looking at the project milestones, what we might do is establish them based on X number of days following approval of the entitlements or something to that effect. That's one of the ways that we can establish milestones while still giving adequate time for our boards and commissions to go through a process.
That's correct, and that's kind of what we did with the previous milestones.
So something along those lines, I think is appropriate. I don't want a debate over whether or not a milestone was reached or not reached because of a delay in making an approval to become a issue of dispute. So when it comes to some of the provisions, such as deferring the TOT tax for 10 years, as I understand the proposal, it is still a $50 million maximum that would go to the developer, correct?
That is correct.
So he's not asking for any more money to come from the city, but he is asking for a substantial difference in how that, at the timeframes in which that money comes to him.
Correct.
And was there any provision for him to pay interest on that deferred money?
I don't believe that there has been. That's something that could be discussed as we make changes to the operations covenant.
And so have we had an agreement with any other developer that was subject to these TOT rebates that was at 100% for any time period rather than the 75%?
Let's see, I believe in conferring with Mr. Verada that we haven't, and I'll ask Jay to come forward, please.
That's correct. We have not had any other TOT rebates at that level of share.
Okay. It's my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that when it comes to deferral of payments of fees, we have one other example of that, and that was the Serena Park project that, unfortunately, I don't know if this is a comparison or not, that's a project that stands stalled and does not appear to be moving forward.
That is correct.
So I think the issues that are before council tonight are very clear as to whether or not we are comfortable with the outline of what's being recommended to us. And this isn't a discussion as to whether or not we want to see the Auberge Hotel come into being. We have, and I was reminded earlier today, this proposal started in 2014, about the time that Flynn came to work for the city of Palm Springs, and about the time that I was appointed to the Planning Commission. So 9 years later, we're still here. We're still trying to make this project work. I don't know what more good faith we as a council or as a city can exhibit than 9 years of trying to make this work. I'm very gratified by the work that Mr. Weintraub and his team has taken with the neighborhood in the last many months. That this many folks from the Historic Tennis Club came out is a testament to the effectiveness of that outreach, and I thank each member of the community that came forward. I want to see this hotel get built too. But I do have concerns if we provide an agreement to someone that breaks the precedence of agreements that we have reached with every other hotel entity that's come forward to us.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments from council? Councilmember DeHart?
One more clarification. From my understanding is also this is an all or none acceptance of the terms, these new deal terms. Is that right?
That is how it has been presented to us, and maybe Mr. Weintraub, would you state that that's correct? Okay. I might ask the developer to speak if you would allow him to respond to that question.
We'll allow it.
Okay. So to answer Councilmember DeHart's question, it's a longer answer than just a few seconds. So apologize for that in advance. What I tried to do was create a program based on the fact, and we've even heard it tonight with the Affordable Housing Project, with the Plaza Theater, with the College of the Desert, that and Mayor Pro Tem Bernstein's comments about the inflation increases over the last several years, supply chain, interest rates doubling, that we're in really unprecedented times, from a state that was $90 billion in surplus to a state that's massively in deficit 1 year later. So I came up with a project of redesigning, of maintaining the top brand in the entire Coachella Valley. There's not a single 5-star brand in the Coachella Valley. And that includes the Ritz-Carlton in Rancho Mirage. That's not a real 5-star hotel. There are some luxury small hotels in the valley, but nothing like Auberge. And these plans, and I think there's a question asked, did we submit our plans? We submitted our plans. I would say they're complete. In fact, we got a lot of feedback from the city that they were extraordinary. They cost millions of dollars that I paid for myself out of my pocket. Those are going in the garbage primarily, except for the church and the restoration of the bungalows. So this is still a project of passion and something I'm very committed towards. I think we did everything right, but we couldn't predict the massive change in everything doubling and interest rates doubling. So I came up with a redesign along with Auberge and with my architecture and design team for something that we can afford, that we believe can get built in the timeframes that we've proposed, and to get the lenders comfortable and et cetera. We came up with an idea of not asking the city for another additional dollar, but it's a timing issue. Because to build the highest brand, highest cost per key that's ever been built in the Coachella Valley, and I apologize for the amount of time it's taken, but sometimes things are worth the wait, and I think this is definitely that. We came up with a package that I thought was equitable, and I said, well, how do I put my money where my mouth is? Say that this is it. If we don't get started on the church and the bungalows, which are the Class 1 historic structures. And I'm very familiar with historic renovation. And we have already cleared it with our environmental consultant that having the roof open on the church is something that would be, that should be by the Secretary of Interior standards, something that's very acceptable. But we will have to wait and see. So one thing I had heard from everybody at the last meeting, not from this city council, but some others, was that the neighbors were extremely frustrated and upset. So we've worked a lot on the site, and we've worked with the neighborhood. And unlike other projects that have been proposed in that neighborhood, the Soho Pool House, for example, where people in that neighborhood have been very vocal in the other direction, we were able to do something extremely difficult, which was to get an entire association, the St. Baristo and everyone, not only to support it, which is unusual for them, but to actually write letters and come to a meeting. And all of you know how difficult that is for people to support things. It's very easy to get people to come out against things. So in reality, I'm not really asking the council for any money. I'm asking for a timing issue. As far as the precedence goes, I don't think there are any other projects right now that exist that have not been built that are subject to receiving the TOT rebate. I don't think any of them involve a 4.5 acre assemblage in an area like this that we're dealing with the rebuilding of significant Class 1 historical structures. So I don't think this is precedent setting because I don't think the city has a TOT program anymore. The purpose for this meeting tonight is that if I get good direction from the council, we are prepared and are ready to go 100 miles an hour on our plans and get those submitted post haste. What happened last time when we submitted our plans, and there were delays acknowledged by the planning department, et cetera, was because of lack of staffing and just took longer to turn things around. That's fine, things happen. It's just we're all human. I understand Councilmember Middleton's concern that that not be used as an excuse, and I think Attorney Ballinger came up with the idea of making sure that that doesn't happen by using the start date from when things are approved to measure when we actually have to get started. So circling all the way back to your question as to whether it's an all or nothing, the devil's in the details. But if it's because you feel it's precedent setting for a TOT program that no longer exists, I don't think that's a reason to turn this down. If it's because the fees are deferred because some other project I'm not even familiar with hasn't moved along or got stalled, I can't speak to that, but I can speak to my successful projects that were built during COVID that are open and doing extremely well, Sportsman's Lodge in Studio City, Cambria Hotel in Calabasas, and a whole slew of other things. I really love this project, and I really want it to happen. I've really offered everything I can, and I hope that if there are some tweaks, so that means that there is room to talk about things, that they are not substantive, but more in clarifying to make sure that the city is protected. And that's the answer to my question.
I didn't hear the answer to my question, though. So I think I read that maybe in a memo from your attorney that if we don't agree to these bullet points, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, that this is not something for consideration.
And what I'm trying to say is that the devil's in the details, and there are some tweaks, but I'm trying to operate from a logic point of view. So yes, this is what we need. This is what I feel we need. This is what my lender feels they need to get comfortable to move forward, for me to spend now the additional 7 figures on the plans in good faith that this is going to, get approved.
Yeah, okay. So I think, without any doubt, I don't know anybody that has talked to us, talked to myself, or has talked in the community that does not want to see the project happen. I think the neighborhood is clear that they want to see this project happen. I certainly want to see the project happen, but that's not the question for us tonight. The question for us tonight is how we're going to give guidance to staff on the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bullet points that were presented. So I think I'm prepared to share some instruction to staff.
Thank you, Councilmember DeHart. It looks like Councilmember Holstich also has a comment.
Thank you. I just have a question, if I can, Mr. Weintraub. Our staff talked about holding the $1 million security in a different way. So, Mr. Fagg, do you want to explain more what you had recommended?
Actually, I'll defer to Attorney Ballinger if he could.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So the property owner has proposed a $1 million payment if they don't meet the March 2024 timeline. Without anything more, that $1 million would have to be pursued by the city through some sort of legal action. And so sometimes what you see in these types of development agreements is an additional security, either in the form of a cash deposit. That's one type of security. Another type of security is a surety bond. A third kind is an irrevocable standby letter of credit. And that is an instrument that's held in the name of a bank, and the bank is basically holding those dollars on behalf of the protected party, in this case, the city. And if there's a default in terms of the timeline, the city can call on the bank to turn over the dollars without having to go to court or fight with surety. So if the city is interested in additional security, I would recommend either a cash deposit by the project owner or an irrevocable standby letter of credit.
Thank you. So, Mr. Weintraub, not to put you on the spot, I'm sure you have to talk to your legal team and your financial team, but is holding the security in one of those methods in a way that the city wouldn't have to then pursue, which is very difficult. Would that be something that you would be consider and you could work with our staff on?
It's something I'm open to discussing. I have to say I would be very uncomfortable when a government agency would hold something and make a sole determination.
I don't think there's any,
the sole person at
there's nothing,
fault.
there's no proposal that the city would hold it, correct? Mr. Ballinger, it would be bank or another financial institution, or did you
With
include
the
the
with the
city?
cash with the cash deposit, it could either be held either by an escrow agent or the city. So either third party or the city with a standby letter of credit that's held by the bank.
Thank you.
What I mean by is if the city were to say you're in default, they have to prove that they're in default. The fact getting the money is a secondary issue. Well, it's a primary issue because the city wants the money if they feel that I'm in default. But if I'm not really in default, I don't want to be subject to an improper government taking of the money.
Thank you, Mr. Weintraub. That would be a decision that we would make as a council with our legal counsel. But I think we've heard,
understand.
you've answered the questions that we have, so you have some
No,
questions.
can I
Okay.
follow up? Sorry, I
Go
just wanted
ahead.
to follow up. I know you can't answer. I also probably wouldn't hold the money in a government agency and expect them to determine default, but I think staff clarified 3 different ways it could be held. And what we hear from, actually, when I campaigned in 2017, our residents were asking us for more security from developers so that these projects don't sit there stalled. So that's just the question is, are you willing to consider and work with our staff a way to hold that security that might work for both parties?
I am, and I believe that there might be other ways as well. I don't have them right now.
Thank
But
you.
You'd have to be comfortable with that as well.
Thank you.
So in the staff report, they mentioned the initial construction costs were 67 million estimate, and now they've come down with these revisions. How much do you think they'd be now?
The last number we had based on lumber prices at 457 were around in the low 30s, 32, 33 million of hard cost.
So it's gone from 67 to 32 million?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and you're still having trouble getting financing for that?
Well, there's trouble in financing for anything right now, including buying a single-family home. So, yeah.
Is it easier to get financing if you personally guarantee it?
This loan will have to be personally guaranteed. Any construction loan has to be guaranteed at least through the completion. You have to have a completion.
So you would that's how you do, you personally guarantee?
That's correct.
Guarantee that. But you have financed and built other projects since 2014, obviously, right?
Several $100 million worth.
Okay.
Completed and successful.
So why, this one has been languishing, there's obviously a long time. Why is this one so much harder?
Well, the Sportsman's Lodge project was started in the land was purchased in 2007. We opened last year, 100% leased. Leases at 200 to 300% of what other people are paying in the area. Equinox, Erewhon, Sugarfish, Fred Siegel, very successful because we created a critical mass. Calabasas property was purchased 20 years ago. It was opened up December of last year. Sometimes things just take, a good project just takes sometimes a lot longer. And we don't do big box or industrial or slap up apartment buildings where our projects are very personal.
Now, and I know that you have fixed up the area and it certainly looks better than it did a little while ago. Is it more secure so we don't have any more fires?
Very much so, and today we met again with Ken Lyon. We meet monthly with the neighbors. This morning's meeting, the question of the head of the neighborhood said there was absolutely no complaints and they were very happy and had no security concerns. The same thing was said in the prior month, and a similar thing was said in the prior month before that.
Okay. And it came up, I guess, before that the option, if this is not approved, that there could be a 6-story affordable housing building. Is that something you're planning on?
We will have to look at our options, but that's correct. Yes, and I do think that the zoning allows for it under California Emergency Housing Ordinance.
Okay. You have direction you want to speak? I can make comments more if you want.
No, anyone that wants to make comments is welcome to make comments, so go ahead.
Well, I am I would very much like to see an Auberge Hotel, and I would very much like to see, I know the residents want to see it. I think it would be nice. I wanted to see it several years ago, or whenever it was first brought up. But I think this has gone on a very long time, and I think to come back and ask for more concessions from the city that may not, that maybe it's just delays in payments is difficult to do, considering these delays. I think we've already missed certain milestones, so it's basic, as I understand it from the staff, that there's milestones that have been missed, which I'd be willing to say, okay, if we still have a March 2024 groundbreaking, but I think that would mean you'd have to move basically 100 miles an hour now without additional concessions from the city. And if it were me, that's what I would propose, and that we still have the $1 million security, but in some form that the city attorney is sure that we would actually have to be able to get it. Thank you.
May I ask for clarification of what you're saying? Are you saying that I go 100 miles an hour on the existing project?
I'm happy with the revised plans are fine, but I don't want to have more delays in the project that we end up being 5 more years before anything happens.
So right now, we've invoked a force majeure. There's been some questions with the city attorney. They can speak to that because we have complied according to our belief with everything. And my team believes that, my attorney believes that, my other attorney believes that. The city says there's one thing that we needed to complete our plans 100% because there is an economic force majeure, which we've stated. So yes, that would give us a year to complete or to get started with the existing approved project, not a different proposed project. But I would not be willing to, if you're just saying you're not willing to give anything, then I'm not willing to put up, I'll say right now, the $1 million just to build, spend all this money on plans, maybe get them approved, maybe get started, and for what, why would I do that? There's no incentive on that part. If anyone doesn't have questions, I'll just sit down.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from council? Go ahead, Councilmember Holstich.
Thank you. Thank you to staff and for everyone's work on this. I share the concerns that some of my colleagues have raised. I think we want the same thing. Very much want to see an Auberge, really want you. I believe that this is your dream project and that you're committed to it, and I want to see that successful. I agree that the devil's in the details with what you're requesting from council. So I very much would like staff to negotiate what a security amount would look like. I share the concerns of Councilmember DeHart and others. It's hard to get a full package deal, take it or leave it. I would like more information about what's actually needed by you and I read all of the attached documentation, but exactly what you need to get this project done. The city has given a number of concessions and milestones and extensions, and I understand these projects are complicated. It takes a lot of work and specificity in the city's package and what you're getting and what you're giving to really make it pencil, and very difficult times right now to make projects pencil. So I hear all of that. I'm open to some of the items on this list, but I agree that we do need to look at what we've done in all projects before, because this isn't the first time we've gotten a request for 100% TOT share, right? And we've tried to maintain consistency just for fairness. So I'm not sure where all of council is, but I would like to see staff go back and negotiate real security, because we know it's too difficult to pursue an individual for $1 million agreement, and then really get to the bottom of exactly what's needed here and hear from council of what we're willing to do and what we're not. That would be helpful, I think, and just give direction to staff to have those further discussions, unless that's not where council is today.
I'm happy for staff. I just don't like the all or nothing, and I do want to see this. I do want to see this built, and I realize it is hard for developers, and we want to be a town that welcomes development and encourages it, and I know we need hotel rooms, so I don't want to be seen as not encouraging it. I just don't, it's been dragged on for a long time, and I'm not sure that we've seen it moving forward as it should. And I think I would instruct staff to do what they can to make sure it either moves forward without giving financial concessions that are unreasonable.
Thank you. You know, what's before us is unacceptable. The tone is unacceptable. The conversations that we've just had have been unacceptable in terms of what we're hearing from the applicant. The city has made many concessions already for this project, and we're asking for the applicant to show good faith, and we're asking you to do what you said you were going to do. We're happy to look at revised plans. That's fine for me. Would love to have an auberge, but would also really appreciate having some respect of this council as well. Councilmember Middleton, did you also have some comments?
So I was going to try to look at the 5 bullet points. And as presented to us, and I'm listening intently to my colleagues, there are clearly not 3 votes to accept these 5 bullet points as presented. I don't think there's one, including myself. When it comes to the security deposit, I've heard conversation that could possibly get us to an agreement on that. And I don't want to try to define what that agreement is. I'd like to see staff sit down with the developer. I think in listening to my colleagues, there are some very strong concerns regarding any additional concessions to the TOT tax, but certainly we can sit and have conversation, but I think we're expressing some real reservations to anything along those lines, and others may use stronger words than reservation. When it comes to the revisions to the site plan, I've not heard any opposition to those revisions. Obviously, we will want to see what actual construction drawings look like and have the assessment of our staff and others to those, but conceptually, and all we have is a conception, I've not heard any resistance to that conception. The deferral of payment is something we have precedent on one other occasion for, and personally, I'm open to a conversation on that, but I think the city would need to be made whole in some fashion at some time in order to garner support on that area. Other minor amendments to the construction project, I think most of council is ready to defer to staff's evaluation when it comes to those areas. So I hope I've accurately captured where council is, and I would make clear to everyone, council said very clearly, and 3 different city councils have said very clearly, we want to see this hotel built, but there are limits to what we can do, and we're pretty unified on what those limits are at this point.
Thank you, Councilmember Middleton. Mr. Fagg, do you have the direction that you need?
Yes, I believe we do.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We will now move to public comment. This time has been set aside for members of the public to address the City Council on items of general interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city. Although the City Council values your comments pursuant to the Brown Act, we cannot take action on items that are not listed on the agenda. 2 minutes will be assigned to each speaker. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment tonight?
Yes, we do. The first speaker is Michael Joseph Pickens. You have 2 minutes. Followed by Richard Noble.
Michael Joseph Pitkin, excerpts of Vendetta Against Me in LA. Different studios constantly filming me as I walk along the streets of LA. All of my Los Angeles emails for decades magically disappear. I know NSA has a copy, and I will be petitioning the government. In Reno, heart issue without my consent. I had to hear from Iran social media that COVID was a heart disease. I did not hear this from my own government. Reno FBI expressed no interest. AOL, Facebook, Twitter, Google, Instagram, Grindr, etc. I'm kicked off of, and password's always wrong, comes off as a hacker spear phishing accounts takeover. In Las Vegas, second phone, SIM card stolen, Rainbow Library, Aloha Shores Park. Las Vegas Housing Authority opened accounts in my names without my permission. I could never get them closed. Roddy Rent Cafe plus T0124487 @gmail.com. Terry Foley and Roderick Yenchek. Rent Cafe and parent company Yardi Systems. Cody Raffaelli, Cody0607 @yahoo.com. Kemp Trailer Park 1340 Hassel Avenue, Las Vegas, Nevada 89106. Took my personal info on a HUD Section 8 application, then refused to return papers. I took pictures of college-age drone flyers who follow me with drones and crashed their drone by me. Literally ripped the drone out of my hands. Cathedral City Officer Brooks, go back to Palm Springs where they do things different. Black woman closed KFC as a Riverside County health inspector. Locked me in a restaurant with a female child. Letter to Cathedral City Police Chief George Crum, human trafficking entrapment. No response. Man at library removed my bicycle pedal and was stripping the thread so I could not get it back on. My online pictures of him and his motorhome license plates have been altered, tampered with evidence.
Thank you. Next speaker is Richard Noble, followed by David Feltman. Richard, I hear. Okay. David Feltman.
Richard is not my stage name. Good evening, David Feltman. It's an ironic night that I'm coming to speak to you tonight about the building of large-scale multifamily apartment buildings in Palm Springs. It's ironic because I've been coming to council meetings since about 2014, and honestly, I think I've heard more time spent on the Auberge project from various councils, so it's not just about one council, than I have heard about how are we as a city going to stimulate the building of large-scale rental housing that will service our low and middle income and upper middle income residents, our workforce that I hear at the Visit Greater Palm Springs board meetings every other month that we're desperately short of rental housing for our workers. I'm imploring you as a council to make that issue the centerpiece of your work in the next 2 years. Whatever it takes to figure out, is it the tax incentives? Is it the zoning laws? Is it the financing? Is it the process of getting plans approved? What is it that is holding back developers from coming here and developing large numbers of rental units? It's my understanding that a large-scale rental unit building has not been built here in over 20 years. There are reasons for that. I am not that smart. I'm actually kind of stupid. I don't know what those reasons are, but I hope you will discover them. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Richard Noble here? No further speakers.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is City Council and City Manager requests for upcoming agenda development, as well as council member and staff comments. Should we start with our City Manager?
Thank you, Mayor, council members. I'd like to provide you an update on staffing at the swim center.
We are hiring temporary personnel and we are hiring new employees to fill vacancies there. For our temporary staffing, we hired an additional lifeguard who started this past Saturday. We are also working with our temp agency and have 2 additional lifeguards that will start within the next 2 weeks. Temporary staffing will help ensure that we have on-call lifeguards to fill coverage gaps when they happen throughout the year as well. For our city recruitments, our HR department has been working on a multifaceted promotional campaign involving social media, radio, job boards, and a career fair to fill our current vacancies. The recruitment has gone live today on the city's website, so applicants can begin applying now for the city recruitments, the permanent positions, and screenings are scheduled for March 7th with a swim test and interview for these positions. And lastly, our Parks and Recreation Department has been analyzing the overall staffing needs at the swim center so we can better support our community needs and operations. And we plan to bring back a request for council at the first meeting in March to look at additional positions for the facility. So, thank you. And I think now we have on our screen the tentative upcoming meeting schedule. So our next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, February 21st. And we have a full agenda. We have 3 public hearings with the historic designation of Via Roma, the downtown Block B entitlement extension, and the Hotel Incentive Program Covenant for Descanso Resort. We have a discussion, business legislative items. We have 5 of them. With the library design RFQ we'll be bringing forward, the rescission of the local emergency order, the annual action plan for CDBG, a mid-year budget update that will also include an update on our capital improvement program, and then we have a discussion on Picasso regulatory ordinance. Moving to the first meeting in March, we'll have right now, what we have slated is 2 public hearings and 3 additional business and legislative items that may grow as we move forward. But this is what we have moving forward. A Rios project zone amendment, a TEFRA hearing for Sunnyview Apartments, the sidewalk vending ordinance, an environmentally preferable purchasing policy, and then our audit reports. Moving into the second meeting of March, we're looking at the Dream Hotel Development Agreement Amendment.
Thank you very much. Does council have any comments regarding this upcoming agenda? No? Go ahead, Councilmember Holstich.
Thank you. I'm just wondering if either to this we can add, it looks like it was taken off, but we did have the bullet pointed list of what council had also requested, so we know it was just hanging out there. So I would love to see that on this so that I can know if I need to request something again or what the council has given authority of what's coming up. That would also help us temper our requests. So that would be helpful for me. And then I just have a request if I can. I don't think it has to be a separate agenda item, although it could. But in the issue of staffing the swim center, it came to our attention and we received a lot of public comment about the wage rate being $16 an hour. And though that might be the going rate or market, a lot of concerns about the living wage of $16 an hour. And I got a number of public comments about how many city positions are paying less than $20 an hour or $25 an hour, which is more like the starting wage for a lot of jobs, even in fast food and other places. So I'd love to know, I know the council, past councils have discussed in depth how much some of our vendors are making. Sometimes I know we had talked about the airport, for example, like the parking attendants and how much those contractors are actually paying their workers. So I'd love, maybe it might make sense in the budget process to consider how many of those positions are in the city are making less than $20 an hour or some amount that the city council is interested in. That would maybe help us get money into our residents' pocket and get those good paying jobs to folks. So if there's council interest in that, or we could bring a separate discussion about the living wage ordinance or something like that for the city workers, if there's interest in that.
Thank you. Is there interest in this item generally? I think there's, as you said, there's multiple ways that we could possibly review it. It could be during the budget. It could be at another separate time.
Yeah, an analysis during, he said an analysis during budget planning of if raising everyone to $20 an hour or $25 an hour, what that increase for the overall budget would be.
Yeah, and for the record, I'm seeing nods from the fellow council members on that item.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Bernstein.
Yeah, so I just, I guess according to this and also my agenda request, I'm going to ask again if on the mid-year budget update on February 21st, we can include a discussion of allocating a percentage of vacation rental tax to a housing fund. Because if we could do that sooner rather than later, we could get in the high amount that we'll have in the next few months, which it looks like we're probably going to need to have sooner rather than later. So I don't know if we can include that or not.
Right, Teresa, would it be possible to have a preliminary discussion within that mid-year budget review, or do we need to have that dedicated to a separate time?
If we could have a little time to make that a separate item, I think that's a robust, a policy item we'd like to bring forward. And I know staff is already nearly finalizing its mid-year budget presentation, so, so I'd appreciate it if that's okay with you.
Thank you. That's fine, but I do agree that this is something that we'd like to, we'll need to discuss prior to the budget session in order for us to really be able to make the best decisions during the budget.
Understood. That makes sense. Thank you.
And we did have agreement for a majority of council.
We need to add it as an agenda item?
No, well, we've already voted in a prior meeting to have a discussion about that. So it just needs to be added to an agenda, and that's something that Teresa will work on with staff to determine how quickly it can come back.
Okay.
All right.
I just have comments.
Okay, great. Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, I only have two comments. One is I attended the Cal Cities Conference for new council member and mayors last week in Los Angeles, a three-day conference. I wish it was a concert. It was definitely not a concert, but it was very educational and very informative, and I know everyone else has attended, so I'm glad I got a chance to do that. And I don't have any other comments except to say happy 90th birthday to my mom today.
That's nice. Anyway, Councilmember DeHart.
A number of comments. First off, congratulations, and acknowledge that our mayor, along with the Human Rights Commission, were recognized by the Black History Committee with the Advocacy Award at the most recent Black History Gala. So congratulations to both entities there. We got a letter from a volunteer in the community that in part of the letter, it was, they pointed out the great work one of our employees was doing. And I just want to recognize, a pat on the back to Janice Lopez, who, according to this other volunteer who was there, Rick Mignault, that Janice was in the pool for more than 6 hours from 6 a.m., starting at 6 a.m., vacuuming up leaves to get the pool ready for 175 swimmers that were going to arrive from 37 clubs around the U.S. for a nationally sanctioned swim meet. So hats off to Janice for the work that she is doing on behalf of the city and trying to make things work for those who are using the pool. And I also went to, attended the League of Cities new council member session. I think I got a B and Jeffrey got an A. I am not sure, but it was really a worthwhile conference to attend, and I appreciate the opportunity to be able to go to that. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for always recognizing a staff member in your comments each meeting. City Clerk, I hear we have a public comment that dropped off and came back.
Yeah, we have a Dorian Whitney that dropped off and came
Go
back.
ahead.
If she's there. Miss Dorian, you have 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Hello, my name is Dorian Whitney. I understand that the Navigation Center is coming, but it is a shame how you guys have been treating homeless people lately. You guys have used the police when progressives continue to say that it's not the answer. You guys have continued to push them away to other areas and are doing encampment sweeps to the same people who are ineligible for services, and some just because they have a dog. Just yesterday, there was a sweep. Why couldn't they wait until after the Navigation Center opens? And either way, they should not be treated like that because it's not like the Navigation Center is going to fit everyone. Obviously, all the city wants to do is make them disappear, all for aesthetic reasons. So are aesthetics more important than somebody's life? Many of our snobby residents and business owners seem to think so because it burns their eyes or something. And you just keep doing what they ask. If they are in a public sidewalk, they should ignore it. Besides, a lot of the homeless issues are caused by these same business owners that don't pay a livable wage. Any person asking you to shoo away homeless people should be ignored unless they are right in front of their entrance to their business. Focus on the root of the issues. End the war on drugs. The homeless need to be near downtown, and you need to stop enforcing camping in at least some areas. Especially, they need at least a small section near downtown where they are allowed to camp, because that is where they need to be for their needs. Stop being cruel and heartless. I thought that a universal basic income program was coming, but I haven't heard of it for a while now. Also, the reparations are taking too long. Coachella's universal basic income program kicked off in about a year. The new council members proposing to cancel reparations should realize that that's not acceptable at this point. I am again asking for universal basic income to help prevent more people.
Thank you very much.
That's it. Thank you.
That was the 2-minute time limit.
Thank you. Yes.
All right, do we have other council member comments at this time? Okay, thank you very much. I think I was gonna have comments, but I think I'm done. Thank you. We are adjourning the meeting at 9:13 p.m. and we will adjourn until February 21st at 5:30. Thank you all very much.